Chapter 361 Tina has finally grown up. After half an hour, Eggers finally returned to the room. Seeing Tina, who was fiercely waiting for him, an embarrassed smile appeared on her pretty face, and she was a little afraid to walk to the corner. "Me, didn't I make a slip of the tongue?" Eggers actively looked at Tina and explained in a low voice. "Are you still a slip of the tongue?" Tina's beautiful eyes were round, and she shouted angrily, "Just now, this guy Smog is here, you big mouth, I will tear your mouth so that you can't speak in the future, Tilda." "No, wait." Eggers' eyes flashed, a little surprised, and asked, "Smoker came to see you?" "Otherwise." Tina's face was calm and she said directly, "I shut him out and directly admitted that I like Liang, so he should give up completely." "That's good, so as not to get entangled too much in the future, and your heart is not on him. Not only is it troublesome for yourself, but it also delays him." Eggers thought for a moment and nodded. "Indeed." Tina also nodded and agreed, "I've told him frankly from the beginning, but he has never given up. Now, it's okay to admit that I like Liang, at least smoke him. It will also give up completely. Quote. By the way, let me tell you something." Eggers' face changed and he said in a low voice. "What?" Tina was wearing pajamas, very pink pajamas, revealing a pair of long legs that were as white as jade, shaking constantly in front of Eggers' eyes. Immediately, Eggers made a strong look of envy, jealousy and hatred. Looking at his short legs, he couldn't help but urged, "Why can't I have long legs?" Speaking of business. Tina rolled her eyes, with a strange aura. Even Eggers was stunned for a while, and couldn't help but smile. "Tina, you are really too beautiful. No wonder, even Liang would be moved. If I were a man, I would be fascinated by you." Quote. "Don't interrupt." Tina looked at Eggers helplessly and said. "Okay, let me get down to business." Eggers' eyes flickered and he said slowly, "A good man like Liang, Tina, what are you going to do next? Just be indifferent, or wait for the other party to take the initiative?" "I don't know." Tina shook her head, looking very dazed, said. "You simple little girl, this is not acceptable. If you don't take the initiative, a man like this will be taken away by others sooner or later. At that time, you will have nothing to do." Eggers frantically instilled some proactive ideas into Tina. Said, so that Tina herself was a little flustered. "What then?" Tina's beautiful eyes blinked, looking at Eggers with big eyes, and asked. Eggers smiled narrowly and said in a low voice, "That must be, let you take the initiative. When the opportunity is not lost, you must take the initiative to seize an opportunity to get the good life you want." Take the initiative. Tina was stunned, she hadn't thought about it at all. "That's right." Eggers said again, "As the saying goes, men chase women, separate walls. Women chase men, separate paper. What's more, Tina, you are such a beautiful and moving girl. If you chase men, you will definitely catch them." Quote. "Isn't that a good thing?" Tina hesitated for a moment, her pretty face was a little nervous. Let her go after Liang. Chapter 361 Tina has finally grown up. Let her go after Liang. This thing, I'm afraid she can't do it at all. Her face is not so thick yet. Not good. If you don't take the chance, a man as good as Liang will forget you in the blink of an eye. At that time, you won't have a place to cry if you want to. So, in order to avoid this situation, you have to take the initiative and take the initiative to get what you want. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of what happens. You have to be prepared for anything. And now, Tina, your chance has come. As your friend, I must remind you to seize the opportunity." Quote. Eggers walked to Tina's side and explained solemnly. Tina's pretty face was confused, she had never thought about these things. Seeing Tina's cute look, Eggers said with a smile, "Now, you finally know that I'm not fooling you. I've said it before, I'm an old lover. On the battlefield, I am not as good as you, but on the emotional battlefield, you are far from me. Then what do I need to do? Tina's beautiful eyes looked at Eggers with a bit of brilliance, and asked actively. It sounds like what Eggers said, it seems to be the truth. If you don't take the initiative, what if the other party ignores her? Therefore, she must take the initiative by herself, and she cannot put the opportunity on others. She has no idea what Liang is thinking, so she can only take the initiative by herself. This sounds like it is correct. What do you need to do? Eggers laughed, seeing that Tina had approved her words. Her self-confidence was even more surging. She raised her head, and looked like a senior old driver, playing with the universe. She said, "It's simple, the main thing is to cycle gradually, and in the end, as long as the raw rice is cooked, there is no need to run. Of course, before that, you have to work hard on your own." What uncooked rice cooks cooked rice? Tina asked with a pretty face. Suddenly, Eggers almost fell off his chair, coughed dryly, and quickly said, "That's the indescribable things men and women do." With a swish, Tina's pretty face turned red. "Tina, you have to hear it clearly, the first step." Eggers took a deep breath, couldn't hide his excitement, and said earnestly, "Try to draw the relationship between you and him as close as possible. In order to do this, the number of times you meet with him must continue to increase. Take the initiative to maintain the situation of meeting at least 3 times a day, so that he clearly knows in his head that there is a beautiful woman by his side, so that he will not ignore your existence. The second step. I'm a little thirsty, give me that glass of water." Eggers rubbed his neck and said, "What's next?" Tina hurriedly brought the glass of water over. Mainu said with a bit of anticipation. "For now, you'll just go through the above steps before talking about the rest." Eggers drank a glass of water and moistened his throat, said, "That's good." Tina nodded solemnly, blushing pretty, with a firm, nervous, shy expression, and said, "I will definitely try my best to do it." "Tina, you have finally grown up." Eggers looked at Tina and smiled sincerely, saying, "NLT, 42 and GT. Chapter 362 _ Encounter with Peach Rabbit. The Other Side." Unbeknownst to Liang, under the leadership of his best friend, Tina has decided to show her strong offensive and prepare to take the initiative to attack him. If he knew, then he really had to thank Tina's best friend. Although there are so many women around him, each of them was captured by him personally. Being chased by a woman has never happened. If Tina really did it, it would be something that would make him happy. Dim Marin Vando. The street lights on both sides are very conspicuous. Towering buildings, still lit up. Tomorrow will be the time for the outbreak of war, and the entire Marin Vatican is in a depressing atmosphere, and a chilling aura arises spontaneously, infecting everyone's hearts. Even in the dormitory of the Navy soldiers, there is a sense of depression in 247 inches, and a huge stone is pressed against each person's chest, making it impossible for them to fall asleep easily. They are thinking about whether they can survive the real tomorrow. Whenever they think of this, their breath seems to be suffocating. Late at night. In the streets of Marinfando, there are still many people who can't sleep. They are walking at random, and in the dark night, no one can see the face clearly. Otherwise, with the conspicuousness of Liang's appearance, I'm afraid that people around him will be attracted all at once. It's time to go back. Liang narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile. After going out for a walk for a while, it's time to go back to accompany Hancock. During the time I was out, I met Tina, which was also an unexpected joy. And, most importantly, he planted a seed in Tina's heart. In this way, the seed will germinate sooner or later. No rush at all. Well. Suddenly, Liang's eyes flashed, looking at the tall figure in front of him, who was practicing swordsmanship, and couldn't help showing a deep smile. After being here for so long, Marin Fando didn't even see Tautu's shadow, which made him puzzled for a long time. And now, I finally saw the trace of Tautu. Front. Tautu was holding a famous sword in both hands, standing in an empty space, practicing swordsmanship alone. Apart from her attitude towards Liang, her expression was completely the same as before. Therefore, she was not discovered by anyone. Moreover, when she was in the headquarters of the Navy, she would also perform tasks according to the orders of her superiors and be meticulous. As long as Liang is not involved, she will work as hard as ever for the Navy. Once Liang is involved, then she must report to Liang before taking the corresponding action. Drink. Drink. With bursts of crisp and sweet voices, Taotu's forehead was dripping with sweat, and she was tall and slender, holding the handle of the knife tightly with her slender hands, looking very serious. Just by looking at her back, you can tell that this is a beautiful woman. Possibly, Taotu also turned around and saw Liang in the dark night. He felt a kindness, and his beautiful eyes flashed brightly, and he quietly approached the past. Why haven't I seen you recently? It stands to reason that the scale of this war is so large. As a general candidate and a lieutenant general, you should appear frequently. Liang looked at Taotu with a smile and asked. Chapter 362-Encounter with Peach Rabbit. NLT, 43 and GT. Liang looked at Taotu with a smile and asked. Hearing this, Taotu bowed deeply, with a serious demeanor, and replied, I was assigned to perform some things behind the scenes, so I didn't appear in the public eye. This is also an exclusive task for general candidates. No wonder. Liang suddenly realized and nodded. In his impression, there is indeed no one general candidate for this battle. It turned out that it was because there were exclusive tasks that they needed to perform. Otherwise, how could the naval headquarters miss such a reliable combat power? Although he is not yet a general, Taotu, who is a candidate for a general, is naturally much stronger than a normal headquarters lieutenant general. Walk with me. Liang smiled at Taotu's delicate face and said. Yeah. Taotu nodded lightly, put away the saber in his hand, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said. Soon. The two stood side by side, walking in this dark night. On the way, Liang also learned about the many recent deployments of the Navy headquarters. Taotu, who is a candidate for generals, can naturally learn a lot of secrets. And Liang can get a lot of secrets from the Navy headquarters through Taotu. Of course. He didn't have much interest in this. If he wanted to deal with the Navy headquarters, he didn't have to do this. He just asked Taotu about this because he was a little curious. The night breeze was a little chilly. Taotu had just finished practicing swordsmanship, and her whole body was covered in hot sweat, which made her clothes wet. She stood beside Liang, but her body exuded a unique fragrance, and there was no smell at all, which made Liang have to sigh. Women are made of perfume. When he turned to look at the peach rabbit beside him, he could clearly see that the devil's figure on the other side was exposed to his eyeballs, as if he was about to burst his shirt. Because of sports, Taotu was not wearing a navy uniform, but was wearing ordinary sports clothes, which exposed her figure more obviously. Possibly aware of Liang's gaze, Taotu's pretty face blushed slightly, her beautiful eyes flickered, and she lowered her head. Her delicate facial features, coupled with her shy appearance, really made people intoxicated. A faint halo shone down, perfectly showing Peach Rabbit's figure in Liang's eyes. A pair of long, straight and slender legs, wearing sports shorts, exposing most of the snow-white skin to the air, wearing white sportswear on the upper body. Because of sweat, the proud two groups seemed to be bursting, surging. Coupled with the delicate facial features, the long hair tied on the back, and the hilt of the knife in both hands, while the heroic spirit is compelling, it also reveals a weak atmosphere. Did you miss me? Liang 2.2 spread out his hands, hugged Taotu directly in his arms, and laughed. Feeling the soft touch in his arms, he narrowed his eyes slightly and lingered. The soft body is really hard to imagine, just how Jin contains such terrifying power. Just sweating. Taotu struggled slightly, blushing, and said in a low voice. She didn't want to show her stinky side to Liang. It's okay, I don't care. Li Ang leaned against Taotu's ear and said with a smile. Immediately, Taotu's whole body softened, and his whole body was weak. He leaned in front of Li Ang subconsciously, blushing pretty, and his heart was pounding. Especially when Li Ang leaned against her ear, her small ears were blown, and at the same time, there were such sweet words, which really melted her whole heart. And LT, 44 and GT. Chapter 363 _ Is the Navy so open? It's not good here. Taotu's voice was as subtle as a mosquito, her pretty face was blushing, and she whispered. Then find a secret place. Li Ang said with a smile on his face. He stretched out his hand to hold the soft little hand of the master Taotu, and the two walked into the depths of the forest step by step. Inside the dimly lit forest, reach out completely, no fingers. The lights on the street couldn't shine in, and it was very dark here. Soon, Li Ang and Taotu walked to the edge of an iron chair and sat on the iron chair. Taotu lowered his head slightly, his pretty face flushed, and he looked left and right to prevent others from appearing. Seeing Taotu's charismatic appearance, Li Ang leaned over and hit the target directly. Taotu closed her eyes slightly, and her slender jade arms embraced Li Ang's neck. At this time, Li Ang took the opportunity to pick up Taotu and put it on his lap. The soft touch really made him intoxicated. There is still a sweet smell on the corner of the mouth, which is unforgettable. Very quickly, Li Ang's hands slid restlessly. On Taotu's skin, it felt cold and smooth to the touch. Taotu was completely weak, and fell on Li Ang's shoulder, spitting like blue, and her beautiful eyes were blurred. After being attacked in various places, she has already been completely liberated. At this time, in the darkness not far away, there was a strange sound, which stopped Li Ang and Taotu's movements abruptly. Don't be here, no way. Don't be afraid, I can guarantee that there will never be outsiders here, you can rest assured. No, why don't we go back to the room? It's scary here. Isn't it very exciting here, but I have checked this area, and there is absolutely no one. For this, it's enough to put your heart in your stomach. Quote. The voices of a man and a woman stood out in this quiet environment. Although they deliberately suppressed the loudness of their voices, they still floated into the ears of Li Ang and Taotu. With a swish, Taotu's pretty face turned rosy. Fortunately, she didn't take off her clothes. Although she was touched all over, she would not be seen by outsiders. Neglect. Li Ang still didn't draw out his hands, put it on Taotu's pink back, and hugged Taotu's body, said. For a while, he actually forgot to show his arrogance. Fortunately, the two sneaky guys didn't find them either. Instead, the two of them found each other. Taotu was completely weak, but his face was flushed, and he hurriedly said in a low voice, "Let's go back to the room." Okay, but before that, wait for me. Li Ang's eyes flashed and he nodded. Since the interest has been disturbed, it is naturally impossible to do that kind of thing directly in the wild. But the two little guys who disturbed the two of them couldn't make it easier for the two little guys. I have to say that the Navy headquarters is really keeping pace with the times. Actually, these people have appeared, it is simply too open. Wait for me. Li Ang pulled out his hands, and finally rubbed the soft two balls, put the blushing peach rabbit on the iron chair, and then stood up from the chair. You are this. Peach Rabbit's beautiful eyes seemed to have guessed Li Ang's actions. It can't be just about disturbing them. Li Ang rubbed Peach Rabbit's soft hair and smiled. Well, I'll wait for you. Taotu's pretty face blushed and nodded lightly. She could see that this guy Li Ang must have a bad intention in his heart and wanted to disturb the affairs of the two little guys. It can only be said that those two little guys were too unlucky to let Li Ang encounter such a thing. Subsequently, Li Ang moved his footsteps and gradually walked into the darkness. Chapter 363 _ Is the Navy so open? And GT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. And LT, 45 and GT. Li Ang moved his footsteps and gradually walked into the darkness. At the same time, there was a subtle sound in the dim environment ahead. The sound is subtle, but still stands out in this quiet environment. Hopefully, don't get scared. The corners of Li Ang's mouth twitched, thinking to himself. He calmly approached the dark area ahead. The intriguing voice in his ear became louder and louder, and the corners of his mouth moved slightly, so he made a sinister voice. Gia 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 Gia. Sharp, piercing laughter echoed in this dark forest. In an instant, Li Ang could feel that the intriguing voice stopped abruptly, and instead, the terrifying words that the man and the woman were talking about appeared. What's that sound? I don't know, but it's so scary. Let's get out of here. I remember that more than 10 years ago, in this forest, several people from the Navy died. At that time, they died inexplicably. Don't talk about it. Listen to people, always feel that there are a pair of eyes watching us secretly. No, it can't be a ghost, right? Don't scare people. Quote. At this time, Li Ang rubbed his throat, and a sharp and gloomy voice came out. I died so miserably. Who can help me? Help me. Ah. There's a ghost. Run away. Two sharp voices came out. In Li Ang's line of sight. In the dim environment without too much halo, it can still be seen that two naked bodies are flashing away from the eyes, and they don't even need their clothes, and they are frantically running for their lives. This dim environment, coupled with Li Ang's voice, was enough to frighten the two of them. If you are unlucky, this man may have a psychological shadow in the future. 0. Hey, this brother has a unique taste. Li Ang looked at the naked woman, quickly withdrew his gaze, and said involuntarily. This woman turned out to be a tonnage-level player. While escaping for her life, the lumps of fat on the woman's body swayed, which was really blinding her eyes. Unexpectedly, that man really has a unique taste. Men may even weigh less than a third of women's. So how did he endure it? Li Ang couldn't think of an answer to this question. Come on. Li Ang smiled lightly, watching the two of them running for their lives frantically. He really felt that his mood became a little more comfortable. Who told you to disturb my good things? Don't scare who you scare. The arrogance of seeing and hearing has spread to the extreme. There is no sign of anyone here anymore. However, after this happened, Tautu definitely couldn't agree to do those shameful things here. When Li Ang returned from the original road, he saw Tautu was smiling while covering her pink lips. What are you laughing at? Li Ang walked to Tautu's side, hugged him, smelled the fragrance emanating from him, and asked with a smile. Laugh at these two guys, they are really unlucky to meet you. Tautu covered her pink lips and smiled sweetly. It can only be said, who let them disturb our elegance? Li Ang laughed, and directly picked up Tautu's light and delicate body. Under the latter's exclamation, his figure flashed and disappeared directly into the forest. Chapter 364 I heard it's haunted. In the dark forest. Two naked men and women walked out, and a man looked back in horror, looked at the forest behind him, and felt the chilly feeling again. His whole body trembled involuntarily. The woman is okay, after all, she is a tonnage-level existence, but she was very shy to block her key position, and quickly complained to the man, it's all your fault, if it wasn't for you, how could we be like this? Hurry up and find something to block it, otherwise it will be big news if your colleagues see it. I'm afraid it won't be about the war that will make Malinfando boil, but the two of us naked, making headlines. Quote. The man's lips trembled and his eyes were a little flustered, said. He quickly attracted a few leaves to block his position. Then what shall I do? The woman looked at the man, and then looked at her tonnage body, said. Let's go together. The man was helpless, so he could only give each other the few, 940, leaves. The two looked around furtively. Fortunately, there were not too many people around, which made them relieved. Let's go. The two of them smeared oil on the soles of their feet and left in a swish. The first time, find clothes to wear. Then, return to their respective residences. As for that kind of thing, anyway, both of them are not in the mood to do it. Having experienced such a horrific thing, they almost scared the courage out of their hearts. In a short time, I am afraid that they will not be able to recover at all. It's just that there was a rumor about ghosts in the forest. After the two of them returned to the dormitory, they said it all together, but it made the Navy a little turbulent. Of course. Some people also questioned and asked the two of them, what are they going to do in the forest at night? Both of them fooled the past in a perfunctory manner. Anyway, the two things have not been exposed, but there are ghosts in the forest. It is passed down by 10, and it is passed down by 10. In this way, the people in the Navy headquarters have more or less known about it. At night, there are still many people going for a walk. In the same way, there are some brave people who are skilled in art and enter the forest on their own initiative, trying to find the so-called ghost. Where are the ghosts? Where are the ghosts? I have grown up so much that I have never heard of ghosts in this world. If there's a ghost, let me out, and I'll stand and eat it. Look, I'll say there's no ghost. A man with a confident face looked at the dim forest in front of him and said lightly. This group of people formed a team of 4, 3 men and 1 woman, and entered the forest to investigate the so-called ghosts. But in the end, they searched for a clock, and they didn't even see a ghost. Immediately, they had to doubt the authenticity of the matter. Woohoo! A gust of wind blew, and the sound of leaves flapping came out. Originally a slightly melodious voice, but in this dark night, it was unusually harsh. The 4 of them were stunned, staring blankly at the surroundings. The dim environment made people feel a little nervous. There will be no ghosts, don't worry. Although the man was a little frightened in his heart, he still looked calm on the surface and said slowly. However, at this moment, the 3 people in front of him pointed to the faint blue fire behind him, and their eyes gradually became fearful. Ghost, ghost. The 3 of them ran away, completely ignoring the man. Ghost, are you trying to make fun of me? The man sneered, turned his head, and what appeared in his eyes was the faint blue fire. Suddenly, his smile stopped abruptly, and he made a voice that was sharper than the previous 3. Yes, there are ghosts, there are really ghosts. Help! In a blink of an eye, he disappeared. And after he disappeared, the faint blue light gradually extinguished. Chapter 364 I heard that it is haunted. And LT, 47 and GT. And after he disappeared, the faint blue light gradually extinguished. According to scientific analysis, there is a certain probability that the secluded fire will appear in the forest. It's not so-called sneaking, it's just a certain natural reaction. But this group of people has never been in contact with such a thing. When they see the quiet fire, they naturally think that there are ghosts here. However, the so-called ghosts don't know how cool they are at the moment. In a certain room. Taotu's whole body was weak, lying on Li Ang's shoulder. Her whole body was weak, her beautiful eyes were deeply tired, and the rosy blood on her pretty face never dissipated. Suddenly, she felt that Li Ang's blood was boiling again. She hurriedly raised her hand and surrendered. No, 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 I admit defeat. One last game. Li Ang leaned against Taotu's ear with a smile and said with a smile. No, not coming. Taotu quickly shook his head and said. But how could her struggle be able to resist Li Ang? Under Li Ang's movements, her whole body became weak and she couldn't move. A few minutes later. Taotu was completely weak, her eyes were slightly closed, her brows were furrowed, and she fell into sleep. Sleep well. Li Ang took a peck on Taotu's forehead, his eyes soft and said. For him with unlimited energy, there is no such thing as exhaustion. On the contrary, he is still alive and well, completely tireless. But Taotu didn't have such a tyrannical physique, and went straight to sleep. Her injury is not generally serious. She hasn't met Li Ang for so long. Naturally, she hasn't fought against Li Ang for a long time. As soon as they met, she was subjected to such a fierce battle, which can be said to have left her scarred. About half an hour later, Tautu woke up from the dream and felt the dull pain there, so she looked at Li Ang beside her angrily and said, "It's all your fault, I still have a mission. At night, there are still tasks." Li Ang was a little surprised and asked, "Yeah, that's why ordinary lieutenant generals of the headquarters can't see us on weekdays. That's the reason. Our mission, to get up early and get late at night, is simply too inhumane. Moreover, the war is about to break out tomorrow, and I also need to prepare the corresponding measures in advance. The link I am responsible for is behind the scenes, so don't worry, I will be fine." Tautu gave Li Ang a sweet mouth and said, "Well then, I should go back too." Li Ang stretched his waist and responded to Tautu, saying, "Soon." Tautu wore a navy uniform and carried a famous knife around his waist. After tidying his hair, he looked at Li Ang beside him with soft eyes and said, "I'll go first." "Well, be careful." Li Ang hugged Tautu and nodded. Tautu nodded lightly, stood on tiptoe, and pecked at Li Ang's mouth, then like a frightened rabbit, he quickly disappeared from Li Ang's sight. After leaving Li Ang's sight, the smile on Tautu's pretty face gradually subsided, becoming cold and expressionless. There are still a lot of documents waiting for her to read and stamp, which is so troublesome. Another busy day. In front of others, she has always been an arrogant candidate for generals, and she is unsmiling. Only in front of Li Ang, she is unique. While she was walking, the dull pain that came from made her pretty face look angrily at the position behind her, and secretly spit, her pretty face blushing. Blame this guy for making it a problem for people to even walk. NLT, 48 and GT. Chapter 365-Active Hancock. Seeing Tautu's departure, Li Ang wiped away the traces on the corner of his mouth and showed a smile. With Tautu's strength, he really doesn't need to worry about anything. After all, a general candidate. Such a terrifying strength, even in the naval headquarters, is quite the top combat effectiveness. Even if it is placed on the sea, as long as it does not encounter the monsters of the four emperors, Tautu can guarantee that he can retreat completely. Therefore, Li Ang doesn't need to worry about Tautu's safety. Immediately, his figure flashed, and he rushed back in the direction of his residence. Come to think of it, Hancock, this little girl, must have been waiting for a long time. Unexpectedly, I ran into Tina and Tautu one after another along the way. Naturally, a storm was inevitable. After returning to the residence, the lights were still on. Li Ang's eyes softened, and he took out the key and opened the door. Crunch. After the door opened, what caught my eye was the sleeping Hancock lying on the sofa. Hancock is 19, wearing pink pajamas, looking very cute, showing his proud figure, a pair of straight and slender long legs, even the sofa can't fit, and it is placed directly on the edge of the sofa. Small and exquisite feet, white insteps, really cute. Li Ang closed the door gently without affecting Hancock's sleep, and walked to the sofa step by step. Looking closely, when Hancock was asleep, he still pouted, his beautiful brows were tightly locked, his delicate face, and his black and supple hair fell in a mess. But what is hard to hide is her delicate face that makes women feel the hearts of every woman. Don't wait for me. Li Ang spread his hands, rubbed Hancock's black hair, and whispered with some heartache. At this time, Hancock turned over and slid down her pajamas a little, revealing her white fragrant shoulders, with a hint of blood, as crystal clear as a ruby. In the middle of the pajamas, the deep groove made Li Ang's eyes straight. No matter how you look at it, I can't see enough of Hancock's beauty. Go back to your room and sleep, don't catch a cold. Li Ang stretched out his hands and gently picked up Hancock's light and soft body. His movements were not large, and he walked back to her room step by step. Finally, Li Ang put Hancock on the cushion smoothly and pulled up the quilt to cover it. Suddenly, Hancock's long eyelashes trembled, He opened his eyes slightly, his big eyes looked at Li Ang's familiar figure, and he spread his hands arrogantly. Hug. Hancock's red lips moved slightly, and he looked extremely cute. Good good. Li Ang smiled, hugging Hancock's soft body, and said. Why so long? I've been waiting to fall asleep. Hancock leaned on Li Ang's shoulder, rubbed his eyes, and complained. I encountered some things and wasted time. Li Ang put his arms around Hancock's slender waist and said. I want it. Hancock's beautiful eyes shone brightly, and he took the initiative to offer his incense. How can Li Ang manage to take the initiative to Hancock? Especially under the moon, the halo illuminated, making Hancock even more charming, making his blood boil all of a sudden. The two soon entered a state of battle. A time. In the room, there were bursts of intriguing sounds. Grass outside the house. A worm is chirping. Chapter 365-active Hancock. NLT, 49 and GT. A worm is chirping. At the edge of the sky, a touch of fish maw white, although it is not very obvious, is gradually showing in people's sight. Time is running out until Ace is executed. At night, except for the occasional insect chirping, there is no other sound. This night, many people could not sleep completely. In order to meet tomorrow's war, everyone is full of energy, and there is no sleep at all. Even though they knew that if they didn't rest today, their state might not be enough tomorrow, but they still couldn't fall asleep and could only forcefully close their eyes to rest. In a certain room, Li Ang hugged Hancock's tender body and looked at the other party's delicate facial features, his slightly closed eyes and long eyelashes, which were very beautiful and moving. Sleep well. Feeling the gorgeous softness, Li Ang had another burst of blood. Maybe because of his actions, Hancock woke up once. Her delicate face was still flushed red, her small crystal-clear ears still had snake-shaped earrings hanging, and her white swan-like neck was half red. Although the smooth black hair was a little messy, it still couldn't hide her delicate face. Husband. Hancock leaned in front of Li Ang and whispered. At the same time, with a hint of energy in her beautiful eyes, she took the initiative to slide her hands in front of Li Ang. You are playing with fire. Li Ang's eyes flashed, and his voice was slightly hoarse, said. Immediately, the blood all over his body boiled again. Finally. After Hancock hurriedly patted and begged for mercy, Li Ang still didn't let it go, and fought again for a few hours before letting go of the exhausted Hancock. Hancock, who fell asleep, still frowned, obviously, not lightly tired, and his injuries were not light. Li Ang put his left hand on Hancock's neck, making him sleep more soundly. And Hancock could not wait to squeeze into Li Ang's arms, like an octopus, holding Li Ang with both hands and feet, completely preventing the opponent from moving. In such a posture, Li Ang could easily feel the proud figure of the other party, and his hands were sliding on the other party's body unconsciously. Hancock's breathing also became a little messy, his long eyelashes moved, and the rosy blood on his pretty face appeared again, allowing her to show her beauty flawlessly. I admit defeat. Hancock opened his eyes slightly. Mei was a little tired and couldn't help but say. Although tired, she felt fulfilled. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to sleep with someone you love. Sleep well. Li Ang pecked Hancock's white forehead and smiled. Hancock fell asleep again soon. She was so tired that her eyelids were heavy. However, she still didn't let go of Li Ang, like an octopus, hanging on Li Ang's body, and even breathing sounded without moving. Li Ang looked at Hancock's pretty face up close. His eyes were unblinking, his eyes were very soft, the corners of his mouth curled into an arc, his hands wrapped around the other's slender waist, and he closed his eyes slightly. After a fierce battle. The sky has long since changed from the state of night, and a round of scorching sun has gradually emerged. The night was gradually broken. The insects are no longer chirping, and the whole world seems to be frozen in time at this moment. No sound, all silence. When the sun rises, everything begins. It dispels the coldness of the night and takes away the moisture of the night. The temperature in the air rose sharply, making people feel warm. A new day has come. This also means that a world-shattering war is about to unfold on the world stage. Chapter 366 _ all aspects are ready. The next day. Naval Headquarters, Marin Vando. The streets and alleys are full of navies, armed with guns, lined up in long queues, ready to go, with serious expressions. The atmosphere is very depressing. The huge Marin Vando revealed a chilling air. Report to Lieutenant General, we are ready. A Navy soldier walked forward, saluted Lieutenant General Huo Shaoshan, and told the truth. Okay, follow me to the square. Huo Shaoshan's face was expressionless, his face was full of fierce breath, said. With a wave of his hand, he led the many navies behind him to the direction of the square. At the same time, a lieutenant general led the team and rushed to the square. Inside the marshal's office, Warring States stood at the window, looking at the rows of neatly standing teams below. His face was expressionless, his eyes were a bit bright, and he thought. Dong dong dong. The door was knocked. Come in. Warring States turned around, looked at the position behind him, and said. Crunch. After the door opened, a man walked in with a pile of documents in his hand and said, Marshal of the Warring States period, I have already collected all the documents you want. Put it on the table. Warring States' eyes flashed, said. Yes, Marshal. After the Navy soldier nodded, he left quickly. In the office, there was only one person left in the Warring States period. He returned to the table, picked up the stacks of documents in his hand and read them. After seeing the S above, he fell into deep thought, unable to speak for a long time. It is shown in the data. 3 months to 12 months after Roger's death, the list of all the children on the island of Batarala, all ordered to be executed, without exception. In the same year, a woman from Portgas de Luju gave birth to a boy named Ace. Later, she died. The reason was that she was 20 months pregnant. At the same time, she avoided all naval capture. Quote. After seeing the stack of documents in his hand, the Warring States fell silent. He put the documents in the drawer, took a deep breath, rubbed his temples, and had a cold expression on his face. All the truth, he has been clear. Then, just wait, tell this truth to the whole world, and let the whole world know this truth. At the same time, warn all pirates, this is the end of being a pirate. Let everyone know that the Navy headquarters will never tolerate pirates. After all, he was caught, tilde. Warring States looked at the portrait of Ace on a reward list. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, his voice was emotional, without any emotion, and he was calm. Boo boo. The phone bug rang. I am Sengoku. Sengoku's face was calm and he said slowly. Marshal of the Warring States period, I am Lieutenant General Huo Shaoshan, and I am ready here. I see, I instructed the manpower to be ready at all times to prevent Whitebeard's surprise attack. There are also areas beyond the coast, and there must be more than guard personnel. Any place with a loophole should not be missed. Warring States said directly, and hung up the phone bug. Soon, a succession of phone bugs came in and informed him that many areas were ready. Chapter 366 _ all aspects are ready. A succession of phone bugs came in and informed him that many areas were ready. All personnel are waiting for the outbreak of the battlefield. Where's Chiwahai? Sengoku asked the other end of the phone bug. The person on the opposite side is Lieutenant General Crane, who is also a lightweight figure in the naval headquarters. It's almost assembled. Lieutenant General Crane answered truthfully. Everyone knows what is going to happen today, and it is impossible to break the chain. Okay, there are 3 other generals over there, help me inform them and let them take their places. Warring States continued to instruct, and after he finished speaking, he hung up the phone and sat alone on a chair, looking at the ceiling, without speaking, his brows furrowed. Near the battle, although he arranged a lot, he always felt that there were still some places that were not in place. This feeling also shows how cautious he is about this matter. After all, the person opposite is the Whitebeard pirates. The three generals, Chiwahai. Warring States thought in his heart that the appearance of these two would undoubtedly give many soldiers in the Navy headquarters a good morale. Besides, there were other details that he needed to deal with completely. The general is coming, he has to be careful. Every aspect has been prepared. It is almost impossible for Whitebeard to enter Marin Vando. Outside, they will suffer the most severe resistance. Even if they did enter Marin Vando, they would have suffered heavy casualties at that time. Unless, he can appear out of thin air in the sea in front of Marin Vando. But how is it possible, fell from the sky? Warring States rubbed his temples and thought. All the preparations are quite meticulous. After his personal inspection, many arrangements, etc., are all just right, and there will be absolutely no accidents. However, the opponent is Whitebeard, and it is by no means such a simple character. He should take precautions, he must take precautionary measures. The four Emperor's Whitebeard pirates are not fuel-efficient lamps. Of course. He was quite assured about the naval headquarters and his own arrangements. However, there is still a huge variable that requires him to think seriously. This variable is only one person, but it represents a rather terrifying power, even larger than the energy of the four emperors. Li Ang probably won't do it. Warring States frowned, thinking to himself. If there is a place to start, it will not bear it until now. However, he was still a little uneasy in his heart. He couldn't figure out Li Ang's character at all. He had no idea what kind of behavior the other party would do in the next second. Therefore, as long as Li Ang watches the battle here on the battlefield, his heart cannot be completely relaxed. Li Ang does not have a positive conflict of interest with the Navy headquarters, so he will not do it. Warring States thought in his heart, he could only think so. Could it be that he, Wang Hao, can drive Li Ang out at this time? He couldn't do anything, even if he really guarded against Li Ang, it might not be useful. The best way is to ignore Li Ang directly. If Li Ang really changed the changes in this battlefield, then he would have nothing to say and could only admit it. The door is pushed open. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel walked in with a respectful expression and said solemnly, "Marshal of the Warring States period, all the image bugs are ready. This execution is aimed at every corner of the world." "Okay, I see." Warring States nodded, and out of the corner of the eye glanced at the location of the drawer. The information there is also the news that he is about to announce to everyone in the world. This secret that has been hidden for decades and has not been discovered by people, he is about to reveal it. He could imagine how much turbulence it would bring to the sea if this secret was revealed. But at the same time, it can also be more effective for the naval headquarters and enhance more deterrence. Chapter 367-Chaotic Advanced City. In the Misty Sea area, the sea water is choppy and rolling. Ripples were raised on the sea, and waves appeared in the waves, sweeping away. Here, known as the world's largest prison, Advanced City. The sixth floor, Infinite Hell. Bang! The iron gate was gradually opened. Ace, with Halushi handcuffs in both hands and a pile of chains on his feet, walked out of the cell step by step with his head down and expressionless. "Go." The vice admiral in charge was expressionless and said lightly, "Yes, Lieutenant General." A group of Navy soldiers was responsible for secretly escorting Ace to Marin Vando. In the blink of an eye, Ace disappeared here. After Ace left, the place fell into silence again. In the empty corridor, in the dim environment, in the 2 rows of cells, the prisoners were expressionless, without any emotional fluctuations. In a cell near Ace, a Murloc with blue complexion shook his head with a sigh in his eyes. One of the 7 Marshal Cs, Hexia Jinping. "Brother Ace, I hope you can live." Jinbei moved his lips slightly, sighed, and said, "The time for the execution has come, so it means that the Whitebeard pirates and the Navy headquarters will have a formal meeting. And he was directly imprisoned here because he opposed the battle. Because Whitebeard is kind to him in Fishman Island, he must not just watch the Navy headquarters do something to Whitebeard. In the corridor ahead, suddenly a man in a prisoner's uniform appeared and was walking quickly. Beside him, he was followed by a group of people, driving the entire advanced city. Straw Hat Boy, are you sure you are here? A man with a big head and a huge face, who looks like a man but not a man, and a woman who is not a woman, came over. He has unusually huge dark purple bangs, long and thick eyelashes, light blue eyeshadow and purple lip gloss. He is obviously a man, but he has a moon, which is very strange. She-male King, Ivankov. In addition, following Luffy's side, there is Mr. Point 3 wearing a prisoner's clothes. The ability is superhuman, melting fruit. Ace, where's Ace? Luffy hurriedly looked around and shouted. His voice lingered in the huge corridor. Shish. Ivankov's face changed slightly, and he said quickly. There are quite a lot of them in the group. If they encounter the Navy here, I am afraid that a battle is inevitable. You can be quiet. Mr. Point 3 almost turned pale with fright and hurriedly said. This is the advanced city, not anywhere else. Making a fuss here, even he wouldn't dare to do it. Ace, Ace. Luffy couldn't take care of it anymore, and kept looking around. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure. The Straw Hat. In the cell, a man in a prisoner's uniform looked forward with a gloomy expression and said. He had a broken arm, made of golden hooks. Crocodile. Luffy was a little surprised, looked at Crocodile and said. It's you. Ivankov looked at Crocodile, also a little surprised. I didn't expect to meet you guys. Let me go out, I can help you. Crocodile looked at Luffy and said slowly. Okay. Luffy glanced at Ivankov and said. Afterwards, Mr. Point 3 used the power of the devil fruit to create the key to open the door. At the same time, Luffy continued to look for traces of Ace here, but unfortunately, Luffy could not be found at all. Jinping in the next cell saw Luffy, his eyes flashed, and he said solemnly, if nothing else, you should be Ace's brother, right? Yeah, who are you? Chapter 367-Chaotic Advanced City. Yeah, who are you? Luffy scratched his head, nodded, and asked anxiously, do you know where Ace is? Idiot. Ivankov quickly tapped Luffy's head and said, when you see someone, tell them the truth, aren't you afraid that others are deceiving you? The old man is not going to deceive others. Jinbei said slowly. Haisha is very peaceful. Ivankov raised his brows and looked at Jinping with some surprise. Brother Ace, he was in the cell next to the old man before. But now, he has been sent to Marin Vatican. If you want to save him, please, take me with you. Jinping took a deep breath, bowed heavily, and said. See. Ivankov was silent for a moment. Luffy quietly looked at Jinping in front of him and said, okay. Finally. The group led by Luffy, including the prisoners released from the Infinite Hell, are all ready to rush to Marine Fando. There are tyrannical existences such as Shippen, Crokelda, Ivankov, etc. Coupled with Luffy himself, he quickly escaped from the advanced city and prepared to rush to Marine Fando. At the same time, in the monitoring room, the Shemale Feng Klai changed into Magellan's appearance, and ordered to a group of subordinates, open the door. Yes, Director. Numerous subordinates immediately opened the gate of the advancing city. In this way, the ship carrying the Straw Hats finally left the advanced city completely and smoothly, which no one knows. You are finally out. Feng Kelly's eyes were a little moved, and he breathed a sigh of relief, with a smile on his face. After he finished speaking, he moved his footsteps and was about to leave. In the frontal position, an identical Magellan walked in. The two meet. Silence. A staff member was stunned and stared blankly at the two identical Magellans. Who are you? The two spoke at the same time, and the words they said were the same. Who are you? The rest of the staff shouted in panic. Show me your true face. A dark purple venom appeared on Magellan's body, and he attacked quickly with no expression on his face. Venom enveloped Feng Kele, and in an instant, he defeated the opponent. However, after defeating Feng Kele, Magellan frowned and said, "What order did he give you when he came over just now?" He let us open the gate of advancing the city. We thought it was you, the director, so we didn't dare to disobey. I didn't expect it to be fake." A staff member was panic-stricken and told the truth. Well. Magellan's eyes became sharper and he walked out of the control room with a movement. He wants to see how many prisoners have gone in the 6th layer of infinite hell. But on the way, he encountered Blackbeard and the others again. "It's you again." Magellan was expressionless and said lightly. "This time, it's your turn to be defeated by me." Blackbeard grinned and said slowly, "Darkwater." Suddenly, Magellan's face changed slightly, and a terrifying suction force absorbed him. Before he could react, the dark water of Blackbeard had already touched him, and his devil fruit abilities had all vanished. Boom! A loud bang. On the ground, Magellan was lying on the ground, with blood on the corner of his mouth, making it difficult to move. The whole person looks extremely embarrassed, dying. Chapter 368 _ The prelude starts. Marin Vando. In an empty square. A group of navies are ready to go, standing in place, holding sophisticated weapons and equipment, and their expressions are also serious. The atmosphere was depressing, and the entire Marin Vanduo was enveloped in a chilling air. "I am going to face the Whitebeard pirates, so I'm a little nervous." "What are you afraid of? We will surely win. Even if the Whitebeard is on the opposite side, we have 3 generals here." When a group of navy talked in a low voice, it was inevitable that they would be a little panicked. After all, the person they have to face is the most famous overlord in the sea, the Whitebeard pirates. Tension is inevitable. Ta-ta-ta. There was a sound of footsteps, and above the tower, 3 men in navy uniforms walked out step by step, and their figures appeared in everyone's sight. "It's Admiral Akainu, Admiral Iokiji, Admiral Kazaru." A navy's eyes flashed, and he shouted with unconcealed excitement. "The 3 generals have appeared, even if Whitebeard arrives, so what?" "No, and, you see, Chiwahai also appeared." Chiwahai, the 3 generals, this terrifying lineup. If Whitebeard comes, there must be some pressure. "Brothers, I will definitely win." Numerous navies cheered and roared. Above the tower ahead. The 3 generals sat slowly in the chairs. Below it, Shichibukai was expressionless, staring straight ahead. The 5 Shichibukai were wrapped in the sea, Hawkeye Mahawk, Doflamingo, Moonlight Moria, and Ba. Salome Bear, Empress Hancock. 5 people, all concentrated here. It is precisely because of the 5 of them, plus the 3 generals, that they effectively formed a strong morale impact on the naval lineup. In an instant, the cheering and boiling words of all the navies ahead spread around. All the fear in the hearts of the navy dissipated. They, as well as 3 generals and 5 Chiwahai, this reliable lineup will never lose. At least, in their hearts, such a lineup will never lose to Whitebeard. The other side. In an obscure corner area not far away. Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled into an arc. Looking at the war that was about to break out in front of him, his face was calm and unmoved. Under his line of sight, he passed through the heavy seas and finally settled on the pirate ships. The war is about to begin. The corners of Liang's mouth moved slightly, and he smiled lightly. This war has attracted much attention. Basically, people all over the world are watching this war. Whether it's civilians, pirates, or people of different identities, such as the 4 emperors and the Revolutionary Army, they are all paying close attention to every move here. The Lord is here. Liang's eyes flashed, looking at the position above the execution platform. Suddenly, the whole place fell silent. A group of navy looked at the location of the execution platform with dry throats. A figure is walking towards the height of the execution platform step by step. He was not wearing a prisoner's uniform, but still wore a pirate's ordinary clothes. A fiery red bead was hanging around his neck. His face was heavy, and he stepped on the wooden board with steady steps, and was escorted up by the soldiers behind him. Tread. Tread. The slight footsteps made everyone present fall into silence. Everyone's gazes were pleasing to the eye, looking at the silhouettes gradually appearing on the execution platform. Their gazes did not move, and they looked at it so cleanly. Finally, Ace's figure appeared in everyone's sight. The captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Fire Fist Ace. Chapter 368 _ The prelude starts. The captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Fire Fist Ace. Today, the execution will take place. All the Navy knew it, and they stared at Ace on the execution platform, daring not to move. Kneel down. Behind Ace, the 2 soldiers raised their brows and shouted. Ace put his hands on the floor, knelt on the execution platform, lowered his head. His face was ashen, his eyes were full of lamentation, and he did not look at anyone in front of him. Location on the other side. A middle-aged man with a seagull on his head gradually appeared in everyone's sight. Marshal of the Warring States. Numerous navies cheered, watching their only leader, the Warring States of Buddha, unable to hide their excitement. At this time, Warring States holds a phone bug in both hands, ready to notify all personnel at any time, and, just in case, if the Whitebeard pirates behave unexpectedly, he can change the deployment immediately. Whitebeard, I knew you would come. His eyes twinkled, his face firm, and he looked at the sea in front of him. Below the square. Lieutenant General Crane, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, Lieutenant General Ghost Spider and others were all in place, standing on the battlefield, waiting for the arrival of the Whitebeard pirates. The Navy headquarters, all out, this is the real emptying of the family. It can be seen how much they attach importance to this war. In order to maintain the majesty of the Navy headquarters, they had to compete head-on with the Whitebeard pirates. Moreover, coupled with the identity of Ace, Sengoku will definitely not miss this opportunity. As the son of the pirate King Roger, Ace fell into the hands of the Navy, and the outcome was already doomed. Only use death to enhance the deterrent power of the Navy headquarters. Marshal of the Warring States period, all aspects are in place. The phone bug in his hand made a burst of sounds. Everyone is already in place, just wait quietly for the arrival of the Whitebeard pirates. Imaging bugs, are they all set up? 0. Sengoku raised his brows, looked at the dark crowd of Navy in front of him, and asked the phone bug. Don't worry, the Marshal is ready. After the phone worm's words came, Warring States suddenly felt a little relieved, but he still didn't dare to be careless. Before Whitebeard arrives, nothing can go wrong. At this time, Warring States looked to the other side of the execution platform, frowned, and did not speak for a while. This person, of course, is Carp. Garp looked more and more old, with bloodshot eyes in his eyes, and his expression was full of pain. Cap, I hope you don't mistake yourself. The Warring States' face was calm and said lightly. Even an old comrade in arms can't change his decision at this moment. In any case, the arrogance of the pirates must be combated. Just use Ace as an introduction to let the pirates know that the Navy has always been strong. If I wanted to do it, I would have done it already. The corners of Carp's mouth moved slightly, and he said in a low voice. Hearing the words, the Warring States also fell silent, did not speak, looked at the sea area ahead, waiting for the arrival of Whitebeard's group. At the same time, his deployment has been done quite perfectly. Everything is prepared for Whitebeard and his party. The purpose is to combat the arrogance of pirates. In recent years, pirates have become more and more rampant. This war can just make him show that the Navy has always been strong, and it has directly extinguished the small thoughts of ordinary people who want to go to sea. Chapter 369 _ The world's attention. The surroundings of Marin Fando are covered with image worms, transmitting all the information here to every corner of the world and every island. The two positions of the three generals in Chihuahua got a perfect close-up. After all, this is an opportunity to incite people's confidence in the Navy, and it can't be missed in vain. There is also a group of dark navy below, which makes the confidence of the masses soar. Ace on the execution platform was also recorded by video bugs and passed to all corners. This is a live. The technology is really advanced. Li Ang's eyes narrowed slightly, and there were no image worms where he was standing. If there was, it would have been removed by him long ago. The current stage belongs to Whitebeard and the Navy headquarters. If he appears, the Navy headquarters will panic. The only variable is that 363 refers to him. If he makes a move, the Navy headquarters will not be able to resist. It's just that he never had the idea of doing it, unless some accident happened, which moved him. However, it is undoubtedly a good thing to watch the outbreak of the battlefield here, but there is a lack of some fine wine. Otherwise, you can watch the battle of hundreds of thousands of people while drinking. The vigorous battle is really exciting. It's a pity. Li Ang looked at the first-generation goosh in his hand, and shook his head helplessly. Walking out in a hurry, even forgot to take the wine, this is really boring. Thinking of this, he moved his footsteps, preparing to leave here. Anyway, it will take a certain amount of time for the war to start. Now, at my speed, if I bring a few bottles of wine over, the whole process will take no more than 20 seconds, which is enough. Li Ang's eyes flickered, and he did what he said. His figure flashed and disappeared directly in place. After he left, only a few people present noticed. Among them, there is the Warring States. He raised his brows and looked at Li Ang after disappearing, puzzled. What is this monster going to do? However, the current war is about to break out, and he is completely unable to understand the intention of the other party, and it is impossible to send people to try to understand the details of Li Ang, unless he loses his life. It is really taboo to want to know the details of Li Ang. Forget it, he shouldn't interfere. Warring States took a deep breath, shook his head, and said, if Li Ang really wants to intervene, all his plans will be useless. It is better to face it calmly. These are not things that he can stop, so he simply doesn't think about it, but it can save his mind. A sea far away from Marin Fando. There were ripples on the sea surface, and under the sun, there seemed to be a layer of faint golden light flickering on the sea surface, which was very dazzling. Chambord Islands. In the air bubbles are floating in the sky, which looks beautiful and full of picture. Around the huge screen in the central square, there were groups of people, each with wide eyes, looking at the picture on the screen, motionless. They held the camera and held everything on the screen, and their expressions were full of tension. Whitebeard, will they come? A middle-aged man looked terrified and whispered. Bullshit. The rest of the people rolled their eyes, and although they were apprehensive, they were certain. Whitebeard will definitely come. Chapter 369_World's attention. Whitebeard will definitely come. If Whitebeard doesn't come, his reputation will be really infamous in the future. Even his own son was executed, and he was indifferent. How useless it must be. If Whitebeard and the others all come, it means that this war is about to start. No matter which side loses, it will affect the entire sea area. I only hope that the Navy headquarters can defeat Whitebeard. Otherwise, pirates will appear more frequently in the future. And ordinary people like us will be devastated by them. No, but this is Whitebeard. Is it really so easy to be defeated? Let's wait and see. Anyway, this war is inevitable. Quote. The crowd roared and talked about these things. The person holding the camera also took a picture of the scene. No matter what the result is today, they will definitely print the news they see today into paper and publish it to every corner of the sea, so that everyone can know the existence and result of this war more clearly. Hopefully, not much will change. A woman also looked at the huge screen in fear and said, "If the naval headquarters were defeated, the result would be unimaginable for them. If the Navy headquarters is defeated, the pirates will be more rampant in the future sea areas." In the end, it was the ordinary common people who suffered. Hope it. Countless people were silent and whispered. ... At the same time. In every corner of the world, islands, including pirate ships, everyone watched the outbreak of this battle in different ways. The sea is vast and boundless. On some deserted island, a group of pirates are watching the outgoing pictures on the small screen. A man with red hair and a spiky head stared at the picture in front of him without blinking. He wore a dagger and a pistol on his chest, goggles and a dark red coat. Captain Kidd Pirates, Eustace Skid. He is also the one with the highest bounty among the 11 supernovas. Boss, the war is about to break out. This is really exciting. Whitebeard, and the Navy headquarters. In any case, after today, the sea will be in turmoil. No, if Whitebeard defeats the Navy headquarters, then we won't need to fear the Navy in the future. But if Whitebeard loses, it won't hurt. Anyway, the Navy headquarters will be seriously damaged. No matter what the result is, it will be very beneficial to us. Quote. Many crew members were talking, excited. As long as the vitality of the Navy headquarters is severely damaged by 1.9, their capture operations will naturally be weakened. In this way, what they want to do can be executed more smoothly. Nonsense, we are in the New World now, and even if their naval headquarters are severely damaged, it will not be able to spread to our waters. Do you think we are in the Great Waterway? Kidd glanced at the group of younger brothers and said coldly. The boss is right, I almost forgot, we are in the New World. No matter how strong the naval headquarters is, it cannot be extended to the New World by the minions. That's right, it's our fault for worrying. A group of younger brothers quickly agreed and said quickly. What I care about is the outcome of this war. Not the changes the outcome has brought us, can you understand? Kidd was expressionless, his eyes fixed on the screen, and he said quietly. Chapter 370 here. On each island, many people gathered around the huge screen in the center. Everyone put down what they were doing and watched the final result of this war. In the Chambord Islands. Inside a tavern called Shachi's Rip-Off. The originally lively tavern has become strangely deserted today. Rayleigh sat at the front desk, drinking alone, expressionless. Have you ever thought of saving him? After all, he's Roger's son. Shachi folded her arms in front of her chest, took a cigarette, and asked. When he set foot on Whitebeard's pirate ship, he was no longer Roger's son. The life he decided by himself, no matter how hard it was, had to go on by himself. It was his choice. I'm sure Roger would have thought so even if he was alive. Rayleigh's face was calm and he said slowly. You can read it. The corners of Shachi's mouth moved slightly, her tone inexplicable, she said. Today's business in the tavern was unusually calm, which allowed her to take a break and chat with Rayleigh. She had a good life. However, she could still see that although Rayleigh said so on the surface, he was still very entangled and struggling. Anyone who says 19 will say it, but whether he really thinks so in his heart is unknown. However, even if Rayleigh did try to save it, it would be a huge problem. Many people are aware of Rayleigh's affairs in the Chambord Islands, but the Navy has never harassed him, and it is naturally the fear of the crew of the Roger Pirates gathering. If you attack Rayleigh, some hidden monsters will be dispatched. Therefore, Rayleigh can't do anything to the Navy. This is a big taboo, and it will cause a lot of troubles to disturb his peaceful life. After all, he is old. If he was young, he still had the blood to go to the naval headquarters to make a scene, but now he is used to such quiet and peaceful days. He no longer has an adventurous heart. He was willing to live in seclusion and no longer participate in world affairs. Liang, this monster, is really terrible. Shachi couldn't help but sighed and said. Looking back now, What Liang said at that time was a terrifying nightmare for her, lingering in her heart all the time. Who would have thought that the other party actually predicted the future? At first, they didn't believe it at all. But now, they had to believe it. Because what has happened, the whole world, everyone can see it. That's why I said, don't provoke him. Even if it was me, when I faced him, I still had the feeling of being seen through my mind and shuddered. I only felt this feeling from Roger. Rayleigh's eyes flashed, with a bit of solemnity, said. You mean he also has the ability to hear the voice of all things? Shachi was stunned and asked immediately. There should be nothing wrong. Rayleigh nodded, without denying, said. Immediately, both of them were slightly startled. The two senior pirates were weighed down by the pressure from the same person. Marin Vando. The square was full of dense figures, and a Ming Navy looked nervous, looking at the calm sea ahead, motionless, daring to say a word. Time passed gradually. The shorter the remaining time, the greater the chance of the Whitebeard pirates appearing. They must work hard to face this terrifying sea overlord. Above the tower, Warring States held the phone bug in his hand, his face expressionless, watching the passage of time. Chapter 370 here. Warring States held the phone bug in his hand, his face expressionless, watching the passage of time. As long as the time is up, the image worm will take pictures and execute Ace directly, causing huge turbulence to the pirates. Of course. He would never think that Whitebeard and his party were absent, and the other party came back, but he would not know when and where they would appear. Based on the experience of his old opponents for so many years, he can be absolutely certain that Whitebeard will never be absent. Suddenly, the quiet atmosphere was broken. Many pirates in the square were moved, looking at the sea in front of them and shouting loudly. Come on, a lot of pirate ships, they're all here. Molix Pirates, a pirate group under the Whitebeard Pirates, captained by Molix, with a bounty of 120 million berries. And Two Swords Nick, with a bounty of 96 million berries. My God, they're all here, all the pirates belonging to the Whitebeard Pirates are here. Quote. Numerous navies looked at the sea in front of them, and there was a commotion. In the mist, the number of pirate ships has gradually increased. 1, 2. More than a dozen pirate ships appeared in the sea area ahead at the same time, aiming at Marin Vando, constantly approaching. Where's Whitebeard? Where's Whitebeard's Moby Dick? A navy's eyes popped, and he quickly looked around the pirate ship ahead. But in the end, he still couldn't find Whitebeard's Moby Dick. And the captains, none of them showed up. The rest of the navy found the clue and shouted loudly. The Whitebeard pirates are not there. These are all the pirates under his command and the Whitebeard pirates. The Moby Dick, which sailed around the sea, did not appear at all. Where are they? Find out, are they hidden in the pirate ship? No Moby Dick at all. Quote. Countless navies were boiling, and God was nervous and uneasy, said. On the tower. Sengoku raised his brows, looked at the countless pirate ships in front of him, and did not speak. In his line of sight, he also did not see the existence of the Whitebeard pirates. On the contrary, those pirates belonging to Whitebeard kept appearing in the sea area in front of Marin Vando. The eyes of the three generals and Chiwahai were also attracted to the past. Looking at the sea in front of them, they all fell into indifference. Looking at it this way, the Whitebeard pirates have yet to appear. As for these little ones, they don't really care. This guy with white beard is not a reckless man. Sengoku's eyes flickered and he fell into thought. He quickly thought about the direction in which Whitebeard and the others would appear. Where exactly would they be? If it is not in the middle of that group of pirate ships, then, where will the other party appear? This question made him completely unable to come up with an answer. At the current position, a group of navy was restless. Seeing that dozens of pirate ships finally arrived, they felt a sense of tension in their hearts. However, if it is just like this, it will not affect the fighting spirit in their hearts. Behind us, there are 3 generals and Chihuahua. A navy looked firm and shouted loudly. That's right. All navies are high morale and totally fearless. Chapter 371 Moby-Dick. Whoa. The sea rolled and the waves rolled. On the Golden Sea, pirate ships sailed past, targeting Marin Fando ahead. On the deck, countless pirates shouted loudly. Ace, we're here to save you. Ace is waiting for us. These goddamn navies. I must let you die. How dare you treat Ace like this, it's unforgivable. Wait, we're almost there, Ace, you wait. Quote. Pirates are also boiling over it. There are countless fierce pirates standing on the pirate ships, holding weapons, looking at Marin Fando in front, shouting loudly, and the sound is loud, echoing around. There is a huge contrast between the 2 sides. One for the pirates, one for the navy. On the execution stand, knelt on the wooden board, his face without waves changed slightly, raised his head, and looked at the sea in front of him. The group of pirate ships kept approaching, and his eyes were wet. You. Ace moved his lips slightly and opened his mouth, the words stuck in his throat, unable to speak. It's finally here. Sengoku was expressionless, and was about to prepare an order to stop this group of pirates. The other side. Li Ang's figure appeared on the branch. He sat down very leisurely, put the wine on his body beside him, and said with a faint smile, I didn't come late, did I? He glanced at the countless pirate ships that appeared in the sea, his face was calm, and he laughed. The time is just right, just right. Immediately, he opened the wine and poured it into his throat. Feel the fiery taste, it's so sour. Immediately afterwards, he watched the outbreak of the war ahead as if he were watching a movie. Where's the white beard? The 3 generals sat on the high platform, brows furrowed, puzzled. Since these pirates have all appeared, then Whitebeard will definitely appear. But after so long, the Moby Dick with the white beard still hasn't appeared in people's sight. This is kind of weird. Not only the 3 generals were puzzled, but also the group of lieutenant generals below. Be careful, I always feel that this guy with white beard will appear in front of us in ways we can't imagine. Lieutenant General Crane pondered for a moment and reminded the lieutenant general beside him. Well, I have a hunch too. Ghost Spider and others nodded and said. Since they didn't accompany this group of pirate ships, Whitebeard and the others would definitely appear in front of them in a direction they didn't expect. It's just that they don't know when it will be. There is still some distance before the execution time. In this distance, Whitebeard will inevitably appear. This is a 100% sure fact. No. The Warring State's face changed slightly, and he smelled an unusual breath. Is this too quiet? Although a group of pirate ships appeared, the overall situation was completely different from what he imagined. What exactly is this guy with Whitebeard planning? At this time, not only Sengoku was thinking about it, but everyone was thinking about the same problem. That is, where is Whitebeard? Only Whitebeard is the master of this war. If he does not appear, this war will be meaningless. At this time, Li Ang sat on the branch, his ears moved slightly, the corners of his mouth were slightly upturned. He looked at the coast at the location of Marinfando Harbor, and said with a smile, come on. Chapter 371 Moby-Dick. Li Ang sat on the branch, his ears moved slightly, the corners of his mouth were slightly upturned. He looked at the coast at the location of Marinfando Harbor, and said with a smile, come on. There is a layer of blocking walls around Marinfando. It was this layer of wall that effectively blocked the group of pirates. Therefore, Sengoku is not very worried about the attack of these pirates. He also believed that it was impossible for Whitebeard to pass through this layer of wall. But what he couldn't imagine after playing was that Whitebeard wouldn't appear outside at all, but appeared on the bottom of the sea. This moment. Near the coast, a group of navy noticed it. The originally calm sea seemed to have ripples. The ripples are not big, but every few seconds, the ripples will gradually increase. The originally calm sea surface gradually becomes a little turbulent, and the sea water spreads around. What's the matter? The Navy was stunned, and they all looked at the coast where the port was located. How is it that the calm sea is actually boiling? What the hell is going on here? In an instant, Warring States' pupils shrank, and he lost his voice. Actually, I didn't expect this. Right in his sight. The sea ahead was rough. Whoa! The sea water rushed towards the surrounding frantically, and in the center, an object gradually rose up, pushing the sea water all around. What? It appeared here. My God, Whitebeard, did he actually, appear here from under the sea? No wonder, the surrounding seas are calm, except for those ordinary pirate ships. Not even a shadow of Whitebeard and those captains can be seen. It turns out that they had already planned to enter Marin Vando directly from the bottom of the sea. Quote. Numerous navies were moved and started talking in silence. Well. The three generals all looked a little unnatural, looking at the sea in front of them, frowning, not knowing what they were thinking. Directly below, there were 5 people from Chihuahua, with calm expressions on their faces, staring at the rising sea, with a hint of surprise in their eyes, but it was still within an acceptable range. They don't need to think too much, they can occasionally block the captain of Whitebeard. As for other things, this is what the Navy headquarters needs to consider, not them. Whoa! The sea splashed up and rushed around, the waves were turbulent, and ripples were raised, and waves appeared in circles and circles, with the towering area as the center point, wanting to spread everywhere. Damn! Warring States' face was extremely gloomy, and he still never expected that the Whitebeard could emerge from the bottom of the sea. This time, the peripheral protection measures were also wasted in vain. Sure enough, as expected of a Whitebeard. Warring States took a deep breath, his face gloomy and uncertain. Finally, in everyone's sight, a huge pirate ship gradually appeared in their field of vision. The moment it was exposed to the air, the coated bubbles shattered directly, revealing the full picture of the ship. Similar to the head of a whale, with a semicircular arc in front, it is very huge. On the banner above, a skull with a white beard is exposed. The sea gradually returned to calm. But here, a pirate ship appeared, making all the navies fall into a silent atmosphere. Everyone stared blankly at the huge pirate ship ahead. An ancient pirate ship that has sailed the sea for countless years. Moby Dick finally appeared. Chapter 372-Whitebeard is here. The Moby Dick, the Whitebeard pirates, finally appeared. Look, those captains have all appeared on the board. Undoubtedly, this ship is the one carrying the Whitebeard. Don't be afraid, there are 3 generals behind us, we don't need to be afraid of them. They are just Whitebeards, people of the old times, why should we be afraid of them? Quote. A group of navy was boiling, looking at the huge pirate ship ahead, still forcing themselves to calm down. Behind them, stood Chihuahua and the 3 generals, with confidence emerging in their hearts, gritted their teeth, and stood firmly on the spot, holding the gun tightly in both hands, unmoved. In any case, the 3 generals behind them will serve as their strongest support. Whitebeard. Warring States stood on the tower, his face was ashen, staring at the Whitebeard, and said solemnly. He still ignored it. The other party actually emerged from the bottom of the sea, which directly caught him off guard. But fortunately, the defense line outside was just wasted, and the real main force is still here. The other side. The 5 members of Chihuahua 19 also had a somewhat solemn expression. Except for Hancock, the rest of Chihuahua had a heavy mood. In the face of Whitebeard, the gap between them and each other is reflected. The one in front of him is known as the most powerful man in the world. Of course. Because of Li Ang's appearance, this title has also changed, but what cannot be concealed is that Whitebeard's strength is very tyrannical. Mighty monster, Whitebeard. Hawkeye's eyes were sharp and expressionless, he said. It's getting more and more interesting. Doflamingo let out a sharp laugh, his eyelids twitched, and he said slowly. Anyway, he didn't face Whitebeard alone, and he didn't need to worry at all. He can leave here anytime he wants. Naturally, he didn't have to fight to the end with Whitebeard, and the pressure in his heart was definitely not as heavy as these people in the Navy. The area of the square is the area of the Dark Navy concentrated words. Below. Countless lieutenant generals looked at the Moby Dick in front of them with serious expressions, without blinking. Whitebeard, here we come. Everyone is in their place, and they are all ready. The person we are going to face, once was the same era as Roger the Pirate King, who ruled one sea area, as the overlord of the sea, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. Vice Admiral Ghost Spider took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice. Yes, the person we are going to face is the Whitebeard, and we must not be careless. Of course, we don't need to fear them. Behind us, there is also the highest combat power of the Navy headquarters, and the three generals are our strong backup. On the side, another lieutenant general nodded, and an excited voice came out. Fearless. Many navies are full of enthusiasm and high fighting spirit. Their hearts are high and their hearts are surging. That's right. On their side, there are three generals, even if the person in front of them is Whitebeard, so what? How could the three admirals of the Navy lose to Whitebeard? We will not lose, everyone, cheer up, we will win. A Navy held the blade in both hands and shouted loudly. The fighting spirit of the Navy at the scene was completely driven, and everyone looked at the Moby Dick in front of them without fear. The voice was loud and resounding through the sky. The Dark Navy, standing in the square, filled every inch of the land here. The Navy headquarters, in the face of this battle, also came out in full force. Whether it is a soldier or a lieutenant general, everyone has a responsible position and responsibility. Whitebeard. Lieutenant General Crane stood in the crowd, expressionless, looking ahead calmly. She also had a lot of dealings with Whitebeard. At the beginning, she, Sengoku and Garp were the mainstay of the Navy, although she existed as a wise general. However, her strength cannot be underestimated. A war is about to break out. Chapter 372_Whitebeard is here. NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. A war is about to break out. The Navy's morale was like a rainbow, while the pirates on the opposite side fell into an abnormally silent state. Dang dang dang. A steady sound of footsteps appeared step by step. Standing in the position of working overtime, the team leader of the first team, Markle the Phoenix, the team leader of the third team, Diamond Yoja, and others, stared blankly at Marin Vando in front of them. Behind them, a figure gradually walked up the stairs. Gradually, a head appeared. With a white beard, a pair of eyes, full of deterrence. He walked up the stairs step by step, holding a large sword in his hand named Naginata, which had been with him for more than a few decades. Front. All the voices of the Navy fell into silence, and everyone's eyes hit the bow of the Moby Dick, watching the appearance of this huge figure. Goo la la la. A loud laugh came from the man's mouth. He looked at Marin Vando in front of him, his eyes fixed on Ace, and then he looked at Warring States next to him, and shouted loudly, Warring States, my son, are you all right? Whitebeard. Edward Newgate. Whitebeard. The Warring States' face was heavy, looking at the Whitebeard very ugly, said solemnly. Everyone fell into silence. Including the people on the Navy side, looking at the huge figure, their hearts were depressed and panicked. Whitebeard, appeared, once with the name of Roger the Pirate King, the terrifying pirate of the sea. Also, next to Whitebeard is the captain of the first team, the Phoenix, Marco. The captain of the 3rd Division, Diamond Yoja, and the captain of the 5th Division, Foil Beasta, are all here, and all the captains are here. Quote. The Navy's lips trembled, looking at the characters standing on the deck of the Moby Dick, feeling a little flustered in their hearts. What are you afraid of? We also have 3 generals here. Lieutenant General Huo Shaoshan said bluntly with a rough voice. On the tower. Ace knelt on the wooden board and looked at Whitebeard, Marco and others in front of him, his eyes moistened unconsciously. Obviously it was me, and it was my willfulness that went to arrest Stitch. It was me who was caught regardless of the obstacles. Obviously. On the deck. Whitebeard looked at Ace. Lang Lang said, Ace. The sound is loud and clear, passing around. My son, you have suffered, and I will save you. The corners of Bybird's mouth were slightly raised, and he said with a confident smile. Ace, don't worry, we will definitely rescue you. We will never forgive those who dare to do something to our family. Yes, Ace, wait for me. Ace. Quote. A group of captains spoke one after another, smiling and watching Ace on the execution platform. You. Ace burst into tears, unable to hold back his inner feelings, and shouted, Why are you coming? It's me. I let you go. Whitebeard laughed, looked at Ace, and said slowly. Suddenly, Ace's words stopped abruptly, looking at Whitebeard, Dad. Chapter 373-Tsunami. Tsunami. I will never forgive anyone who does anything to my family. I will personally take his life, Tiki. Ace, wait a moment, and I will save you. Whitebeard's voice was bold, and it was passed out rough. Countless pirates boiled and shouted loudly. Save Ace, brothers, we will never back down. Rescue Ace. Rescue Ace. Ace is waiting for us, we will definitely save you. Quote. The morale of the pirates has also risen to a certain extent. Under the leadership of Whitebeard, every pirate looks without hesitation, looking at the navy in front of him angrily. Whitebeard, do you think it's that easy? Warring States raised his brows and said coldly. Warring States, it's been a long time since we fought, you're still cunning and cunning. The white-bearded Lang Lang smiled. One another, and you are no exception. Warring States recalled the way Whitebeard appeared, and he felt aggrieved for a while, and said with an expressionless face. Children, are you ready? Whitebeard spread his right hand, laughed loudly, and shouted. Dad, we're ready. Yeah, Daddy, I can't wait to get Ace out now. Behind him, a group of pirates shouted loudly. The image worms passed this picture to every island. Far away from the Chambord archipelago. A group of residents had dry throats, looking at the huge figure of Whitebeard, unable to speak. Whitebeard, finally appeared. The war is about to break out, and hopefully it won't turn out badly. Otherwise, the whole sea will boil over. Quickly, register all these news, we have to pass these news to every corner of the world, hurry up. Quote. A group of people got busy, but looking at the big screen, the terrifying figure of Whitebeard, separated by the screen, still made them feel terrified. This is the terrifying overlord of the sea, a powerful man of the same era as Roger, Edward Newgate the Whitebeard. Today, the Whitebeard pirates are fighting the Navy headquarters thoroughly. For these people, any news is something that can cause turmoil in the sea, and it is absolutely not allowed to miss it. The whole world is watching this war, and our news is absolutely a matter of speed. We can't let other people report us to the newspapers first. A middle-aged man said to his assistant with a serious face. After he finished speaking, he fixed his gaze on the screen again, without blinking. Everyone didn't want to miss the slightest picture on the screen. Their eyes widened, their eyes seemed to fall to the ground, and their eyes were fixed. Occasionally, some pirates pass by and watch the war on the big screen. The Whitebeard pirates, even those who haven't been to the New World, know something about it. This is a terrifying figure who crosses the sea and has a great reputation. If Whitebeard wins, the sea will be more interesting. If the battle is lost, the turmoil in the New World will also become chaotic. Some pirates thought so. In any case, if the two collide, one will be injured. The biggest possibility is one death and one injury. It is impossible to achieve a complete victory posture, and the strength of the two is not so far apart. Except for the Chambord archipelago, the rest of the islands are conveying pictures of the war on the top. After seeing the picture of the Navy headquarters, about to collide with the Whitebeard pirates, everyone was sweating. This war has spread to almost every corner of the world. Even the four emperors and the Revolutionary Army are closely following the development of this battle. Charlotte Lingling and Beast Kaido are also waiting for the end of the war. And then, once Whitebeard dies, the chassis of the four emperors will become the target of their plunder. Therefore, they are also very concerned about the outbreak of war. Chapter 373-Tsunami. Tsunami. NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. Morin Vando. The morale of the Navy was directly suppressed by the morale of the pirates. Every Navy looked forward with a dry throat. Whitebeard was standing on the deck, but the pressure it brought to everyone was not ordinary terror. "It's just Whitebeard, see how you are scared." Flying Squirrel raised his brows, glared at his subordinates viciously, and shouted, "On our side, in addition to the three generals, there is also Chiwahai. Do you think we will lose?" "Yes, we can never lose." A group of Navy regained some confidence and nodded. The three generals were sitting on the high platform behind, completely not afraid of the Whitebeard pirates in front. Moreover, there are 5 Chiwahai, all of which are the top combat power in the sea. How could they be afraid of each other? Absolutely impossible. The other side. On the branch, Liang had his feet hanging down, his back against the tree trunk, his eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the front. The atmosphere became very strange, and he showed a smile. He fetched the wine next to him, his throat rolled, and the cold wine poured into his belly. It was warm, and his throat became hot. "Are you going to start?" Suddenly, Liang looked at Whitebeard's position, the corners of his mouth moved slightly, and he smiled. He could feel that Whitebeard should give the Navy headquarters a direct blow. In this kind of battle, the first duel is crucial. This can affect the final outcome of the battle and, moreover, the morale of both parties involved in the process. Once morale is low, it is easy to collapse. And what Whitebeard wants is the appearance of the Navy in a state of collapse. In this way, when he rescues Ace, it will effectively reduce a lot of pressure. The strongest devil fruit of the Superman type, the shock fruit. Let me see how powerful it is. Can it penetrate my defenses? Liang's eyes flashed, thinking so in his heart. Since the armed color has reached the extreme, he can no longer feel the taste of being injured. And then, he obtained the first generation of Gito, so, combined with his terrifying swordsmanship, the ultimate armament and knowledge, there is basically no rival in the sea. In a one-on-one situation, he doesn't think he'll lose to anyone. Even Whitebeard is no exception. Central area of the sea. On the Moby Dick, a group of captains looked ahead. The burly Whitebeard in the middle is obviously more prominent. Under the encouragement of Whitebeard just now, the group of pirates behind him boiled, ready to go, always ready to start. Goo la la la. Whitebeard laughed loudly, and directly stuck the one on the deck on the deck. No money. He was wearing a white pirate admiral's costume, his eyes were sharp, staring ahead, his hands gradually pinched the front, and the muscles on his body were obvious. Opposite location. After seeing Whitebeard's actions, Sengoku's expression changed slightly. As an old opponent, he is naturally aware of Whitebeard's terrifying abilities. This ability can destroy the world. Not good. The corners of Warring State's mouth moved slightly, and when he saw Whitebeard's actions, he felt that something was wrong in his heart. As expected. Immediately after. In the sight of everyone, Whitebeard tapped his hands in the air next to him. Click. A crisp and pleasant sound came out, which everyone could clearly hear. The atmosphere was cracked with white cracks, and the scene was so terrifying that the scalp was numb. Click. Another crisp voice sounded, and the corners of Whitebeard's mouth curled into an arc, grinning, shock tsunami. Boom. The entire sea surface gradually raised a burst of ripples, rolling continuously. Chapter 374 flooded Malin Fando. Marin van Do's Square. A group of navy felt the vibration of the sea, their eyes gradually enlarged, and their faces were puzzled. What's the situation? How is it that the calm sea suddenly boils? What's going on? I always feel an ominous premonition. It seems that something big is about to happen. For example, in the sea, the feeling of being shipwrecked. Me too, I always feel like I was in a shipwreck. At that time, I was lucky to survive, but everyone else died. Now, I have the same hunch. No way, what you said is so terrifying. Quote. A group of navies started talking one after another, looking at the originally calm sea, which gradually became turbulent, which was really unacceptable to them. There were waves on the sea. The breeze was blowing, as if time was frozen at this moment. Everyone was silent, watching the movement of the sea ahead. Above the tower, Warring States frowned, took a deep breath, and calmed down a little, but his face was still looking at the scene in front of him with a heavy expression. Sure enough, it's still this terrifying ability, shaking the fruit. 090. The corner of the Warring States' mouth moved slightly and said in a low voice. However, on their side, they also have tyrannical combat power, and they will never be afraid of the enemy in front of them. The location of the square, countless navies are talking in a low voice. The atmosphere became very eerie. And the opposite location. On the Moby Dick. Whitebeard's fists were strengthened, and the atmosphere was cracked, so that everyone could clearly hear the sound and see the picture. Immediately, many navies were even more shocked. Are you a human? It's terrifying that people can actually crack open the atmosphere. What's going on here? Whitebeard, he actually cracked the atmosphere. Should I be dreaming? Is this really possible? What was it that I saw? It was terrifying too. Quote. The navy was surging one after another, and everyone's face was full of astonishment. They had never seen this scene at all. Except for some veterans who could think of something, the rest of the recruits couldn't think of any connection at all. After some veterans watched Whitebeard's movements, fear in the eyes BJAA came to their minds. This is, the Whitebeard, the fruit of the shock. My God, finally appeared, the shocking fruit of Whitebeard. Their lips trembled, watching the scene where the Whitebeard ripped apart the atmosphere, and their hearts were surging. They who have experienced previous wars, understand in their hearts just how powerful Whitebeard's ability is. That is a powerful ability that claims to be able to destroy the world. Whoa! The sea rolled up. Suddenly, the navy in the square only felt that the sky seemed to have turned dark. What's the matter? A navy stared at the sky, his whole person stiffened. A large piece of seawater has risen from the sea, and the direction is coming towards the position of Marin Fando. Sea, tsunami. Chapter 374 Malin Fando. Sea, tsunami. The rest of the navy looked at this apocalyptic picture, their lips trembled, and they were completely shocked. The entire sky seemed to be covered by seawater. The original sunlight could not penetrate at all, so they only felt that it was dark. Wait, the tsunami won't appear out of nowhere. So, is it possible that this tsunami was caused by Whitebeard alone? If that's the case, it's terrifying. My God, you see, if such a huge tsunami really hits our face, wouldn't all of us, including Malin Fando, be directly washed away? Quote. They have no doubt that if the tsunami hits directly, Marin Fando will still exist. Questions like this can be answered directly. The answer is negative. Such a terrifying tsunami hit Marin Fando head-on. Even if Marin Fando still existed, it also destroyed a huge number of buildings. Even more frightening is that they are still standing in the square. In the face of the surging water, a large piece of attacking water, they imagined how terrible the consequences would be if they were hit. Flee. If we are hit by the tsunami, none of us will want to live. Don't think about it. we can't escape. Look, how can you escape from this overwhelming seawater? Unless you have the glittering fruit of General Yellow Ape, otherwise, no one should want to escape. Then we just sit back and wait. Are we just defeated? The Navy had doubts in their hearts. Especially looking at the seawater that was attacking the sky and covering the sky, their mood was extremely depressed, their hearts were uneasy, and they were shivering. Seawater is not without lethality, it just depends on the scale and the speed of the impact. If the speed is too fast, if it hits a person, it will also directly crush the person into meat sauce. And right now, the large tsunami they are facing has the threat of death. It is very possible to drown the entire Marin Vando. Just to see if the three generals can do anything. Some navies can only pin their hopes on the three generals. Otherwise, they would be defeated in an instant. A man with a white beard who can cause a tsunami is really terrifying. Whitebeard, he is the Quake Man with the Quake Fruit. His owner, the power to destroy the world. Sengoku looked at the tsunami rushing towards his face. His face became particularly dignified, and he shouted, with the ability to shake, it caused chaos in the sea, and then a tsunami was generated. Everyone, don't move. Under his orders, everyone remained motionless. However, seeing that a large piece of seawater in the sky is about to fall, they must be very frightened in their hearts. In this case, they finally understand. Human, what a fragile force. In the face of such a tsunami, personal power is useless. A group of navies prayed in their hearts, and their hearts also became nervous, and a cold sweat broke out in the palms of their hands. Really strong man. Doflamingo raised his brows, watching the tsunami hit, expressionless, said. His expression remained unchanged, and he didn't seem to feel the tsunami's attack, and he didn't have the slightest sense of tension. The rest of the Chihuahai were also motionless and expressionless. However, they still admired Whitebeard's ability in their hearts. Such a terrifying tsunami can be artificially created. If you encounter such an enemy on the sea, whether it is a fruit person or a person with extremely strong individual ability, I am afraid that they will hate it on the spot. But again, there are people who can handle this situation. Otherwise, their expressions would not be so calm. Chapter 375-A Look. Thought here. The people from Chihuahai calmly looked at the positions of the three generals behind them. How to deal with tsunamis. In their opinion, the most suitable candidate is, of course, General Aokiji. Therefore, they will not panic blindly like those navies. Even if Aokiji can't change the tsunami, they can still protect themselves, no need to be nervous. Whoa! The seawater rushed down, and the overwhelming seawater covered the sun. Of Navy spoke in a low voice in fear. But under the orders of the warring states marshal, they still showed no signs of moving. In everyone's sight. On the chair of the three generals, Chingzi stood up directly, kicked his feet, jumped up, and stood in the sky. Admiral Aokiji, it's Admiral Aokiji. Numerous navies boiled, their eyes flickered, and they shouted excitedly. The general has started, which means that the crisis is about to touch. The terrifying strength of the general is still quite terrifying in their eyes. Creak. Aokiji's hands filled with a small icicle, and gradually reached the position of the tsunami. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, and he said lightly, Ice Age. Creak. The tsunami was replaced by ice cubes at a terrifying speed. The tsunami that had slammed down suddenly came to an abrupt end, and all the seawater turned into ice cubes and connected together. In a blink of an eye. The terrifying tsunami stopped, the tsunami in the sky turned into ice cubes, and the connection with the sea, including the originally calm sea, gradually turned into ice cubes. Crisis averted. All the navies are excited. Sure enough, General Chingzi made a move, and there was a tsunami, but it was just a matter of grasping. That's right, just now I thought that under the impact of this tsunami, our Marin Vando would be wiped out in an instant. I just said, how could we be defeated so easily? Absolutely impossible. Fortunately, Whitebeard's attack blocked us. Quote. The Navy breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that the tsunami that was about to land was frozen into ice cubes, and a huge stone pressing on their hearts also collapsed. Moby Dick, on deck. Whitebeard raised his brows, looked at the green pheasant in the sky, and said solemnly, "Chingsy, you little devil." After he finished speaking, he smashed his hands directly into the air. Click. The atmosphere cracked. A terrifying shock force hit the position of the green pheasant in the sky. Boom. The shocking force pierced Aokiji's head, but soon, the pierced position turned into ice. At the same time, another shocking force knocked his whole body up from the sky and flew upside down into the wall in front of him. A huge ruin appeared, and smoke billowed. It's really dangerous. The green pheasant slowly walked out of the ruins, turning into ice cubes under his feet, and all the seawater was frozen. The Moby Dick, including Whitebeard, was also frozen and unable to move an inch. He patted the shirt on his body, expressionless and unscathed. On the sky, the originally terrifying tsunami turned into an ice sculpture, and it looked quite beautiful. The surging tsunami was directly blocked by the scene, which really made people feel emotional. This is the power of nature. However, it was blocked by Chingsy District's human resources. Although this tsunami was also caused by Whitebeard, it was also one of the hazards of nature. If it was blocked by manpower, it would naturally effectively boost the morale of the Navy. Whitebeard. Chapter 375-A Look. Whitebeard. Warring States stood on the tower, expressionless, looking at the Whitebeard lightly. If you want to submerge Malinfando directly, it's not that simple. Of course. Whitebeard wouldn't think that a mere tsunami could remove the enemy in front of him, but what he didn't expect was that the final tsunami stopped with such a gesture. Moreover, it has not brought a single loss to the Navy ahead. Just blocked it like that. As expected, it's Aokiji. Doflamingo's eyes flashed and he said relaxedly. In the face of Whitebeard, he didn't feel much pressure in his heart. This is not his home field. He doesn't need to contend against such a powerful force. After Whitebeard is alone, after handing it over to the Navy headquarters, the people he wants to block are just those weak captains. In his opinion, apart from Whitebeard and Marco, there are really few captains who can gain his insight. The atmosphere has become depressing. Both the Navy and the pirates are already waiting for the outbreak of war. Especially now that the sea surface has been frozen into ice cubes, and the road to the execution platform has been directly planned. It's just that a group of navies in front are also ready to go. Everyone is preparing to brew the war. The first collision ended peacefully. Whitebeard moved the sea under the sea, and Aokiji ended the lethality brought by the tsunami with the Ice Age, without costing a single soldier, and neither side suffered any losses. The other side. On the branch. Liang was drinking a little wine leisurely, and it happened that a few drops of seawater attacked his position. Fish slipping through the net. He smiled slightly, his body exuding a terrifying domineering look. It's fleeting. Puff. The seawater vanished into nothing, and was directly washed away by the overlord color. Under the sun, it evaporated directly and ceased to exist. The terrifying power brought by the overlord color is just a mere water stain, and it has not been directly scattered. Let alone water, even ice cubes, when attacked, will be crushed into powder and disappear when they encounter Liang's overlord color. It's a pity that such a terrifying attack brewed by Whitebeard failed to cause any damage to the enemy in the end. It's such a pity. Liang's mouth moved slightly, his tone was inexplicable, and he said slowly. I don't know if it was because of the domineering arrogance he exuded just now, but in his sight, the Whitebeard on the Moby Dick also watched. Fun. Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, and with a deep smile, he also looked at Whitebeard's position. Fear. In his eyes, no one can make him fear. Whitebeard is only, although he is older than him, but that's all. In terms of strength, if it comes to one-on-one duels, he will not be afraid of anyone. A look from Whitebeard made Li Ang see something interesting. I'm not a contestant, you can rest assured. Li Ang waved his hand and smiled lightly. Immediately, Whitebeard withdrew his gaze, but his face was also very heavy. Li Ang's existence was an unpredictable variable not only for him, but also for the warring states period. Neither side wants such a terrifying third party to exist in this kind of battle. In this case, the influence of the final battle situation is in the hands of this third party. When they both lose, the third party can directly benefit from the fisherman. Chapter 376 _ the beginning of the war. On the Moby Dick. Marco also saw Li Ang's figure, and his eyes became extremely dignified. However, he also understands that although the other party is younger than him, he and the other party are not on the same level at all. The other party should be at the same level as his father, Whitebeard. Do not. In other words, a higher level than Whitebeard. Dad, he won't do it. If he wants to do it, he doesn't need to be so troublesome. With his strength, I think that neither us nor the Navy can resist his existence. Marco took a deep breath, looked at the Whitebeard beside him, and explained. I don't want to admit it, but it's a fact. When Li Ang faced the siege of Karp, Sengoku, and the two generals, he still forced the naval headquarters to bow his head and finally retreated. His strength, in everyone's head, has a clear understanding. 877. This is a real horror powerhouse. Even Whitebeard, faced with that kind of lineup, would be hard-pressed to retreat, let alone forcing the Navy to lower their arrogant heads. Not even Whitebeard's heyday could do that. And now Whitebeard is still in his old age. So, Marco's idea is very pure. He believes that if Li Angruo wants to do something, he can do it at any time, and he does not need the so-called fisherman to benefit. Thinking about it like this, it can be concluded that Li Ang will not interfere in this war. He is just a spectator and a passerby. They don't need to take it too seriously. At present, their biggest enemy is only the Navy headquarters. You're right. Whitebeard's face was calm and he said slowly. However, under his eyelids, he carried a strong fighting intent. Although he knew that he might not be Li Ang's opponent, he still wanted to have a fight with him and bet on the title of the strongest man in the world. It was because of his fighting spirit that Li Ang felt it. Therefore, Li Ang thought that he saw something interesting in Whitebeard's eyes. It's just that Whitebeard can't fight him now, because if he really wants to fight, then Whitebeard's game is over. As for saving Ace, this kind of thing is basically impossible. Therefore, Whitebeard suppressed the fighting spirit in his heart. Right now, he cannot fight against Li Ang. Once a fight breaks out, the worst result will follow. I'm afraid not only can't even save Ace, but also put all his children here, then it's really worth the loss. The abnormality of Whitebeard made the battle on the opposite side of the Navy very keenly aware. Warring States raised his brows and looked at Li Ang's position. I don't know when, Li Ang actually appeared again. His mood instantly became a little depressed. The existence of such variables is difficult for a person of his character to accept. He likes the feeling of having everything in his hands. But with the existence of Li Ang, this is obviously impossible. However, he had to forcibly endure the pressure in his heart, because he had no ability to drive Li Ang away. On the contrary, if it caused the opponent's rejection, it would be a real crisis for the Navy headquarters. A more terrifying enemy than the aged Whitebeard. Children, save Ace for me. Whitebeard shouted loudly, his voice was heroic, and Lang Lang came out. Don't worry, Dad, we will definitely save Ace. Brothers, come with me and kill all these navies. Go ahead, kill these damn navies. Quote. Chapter 376 _ the beginning of the war. Quote. A group of pirates dispatched one after another, jumped up from the pirate ship, stood on the ice, armed with guns and a large knife, and attacked the location of Marin Fando. Seeing the mighty pirates attack. Opposite direction. In the Navy. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel and Lieutenant General Ghost Spider also stood up one after another, holding sabers, raising their hands, and shouting, "Fight with me!" "Yes, Lieutenant General." A large group of navies also boiled. Especially after seeing the Aokiji preventing the spread of the tsunami, their confidence resurfaced. Under the leadership of the Lieutenant General, the collision between the Navy and the pirates has completely unfolded. The captains beside Whitebeard followed suit. It's the captain of the 5th Division, Foil Beasta. With the support of the captain, we will be invincible, the little ones, let me charge. Kill, I want to kill Ace all the way to save Ace. Brothers, help me open the way. Quote. The battle was about to break out, and the battle between the Navy and the pirates began. Boom, boom, boom. The bullet pierced the air and pierced the heart of a pirate who was killed on the spot. At the same time, the pirate reached with his hand and cut off the head of a navy. Countless people are dying. The number of deaths has risen rapidly, and both the pirates and the Navy are losing manpower. However, the death toll of the Navy is more than that of the pirates. After all, pirates are living a life of too much licking the tip of a knife. In the battle of life and death, the strength they can burst out is far better than being pampered, and they only know that the trained Navy is much stronger. This is the huge difference between those who have been tempered in life and death and those who have been tempered in training. There is no doubt that the person who climbed out of the dead pile is always much stronger than the person who came out of the training. Therefore, in the battle, for every 10 people who died, 7 were Marines, and only 3 were pirates, and it continued to spread at such a frequency. However, this is a comparison between ordinary Navy and ordinary pirates. The naval headquarters, as well as lieutenant generals, lieutenant colonels, colonels, major generals, etc., have strict ranks, and they also possess more powerful strength than ordinary pirates. As for the pirates on the opposite side, in addition to the captain, there are also some subordinate captains under his command, and the rest are just ordinary pirates. This effectively leveled the death toll on both sides. The captains of the Whitebeard pirates were dispatched one after another. The captain of the 3rd Division, Diamond George, raised a large block of ice and swiftly attacked the Navy group in front. Ah! A group of Navy wailed, and some were directly crushed to death by ice cubes, and some were directly disabled. The Battle of 0.9, the wailing of pain was everywhere. Some people have broken arms, some people have broken legs. There has never been a war of the undead. In the same way, the Lieutenant General of the opposite Navy, holding a blade, is constantly reaping the lives of pirates. Puff, puff, puff. The heads of the pirates were cut off and rolled on the ground. Blood splashed and splattered on the ice cube. The original crystal clear ice was dyed red with blood and smoothed into a small river. The small river composed of blood really made people feel terrified and their scalps numb. The bright red color becomes the most dazzling color. On the originally colorless ice cube, there was only such a bright red color, which was infinitely magnified in everyone's line of sight, quite prominent. In the air, the smell of blood filled the air, the strong smell of blood was extremely pungent. Chapter 377-Brutal War. Watching the outbreak of the battle, Sengoku stood on the tower with no expression on his face. He alone represents the spiritual leader of the Navy, and naturally he cannot easily participate in the battle. Seeing the heavy casualties of the Navy, although the pirates on the opposite side are no exception, his mood will always fluctuate a little, and he can't bear it. But in the end, it was dominated by that loyalty to the Navy. In any case, today's war is inevitable. That being the case, then make the deaths of these people more meaningful. Whitebeard. Warring State's eyes were bright, staring at the Whitebeard on the Moby Dick and whispering to himself. At the same time, the other party also looked over, and the two looked at each other without saying a word. Everyone was very tacit, and looked at each other with those sharp eyes. It's just that they are all old rivals, and such oppressive eyes are meaningless. Kill, damn pirates, kill them to avenge our brothers. The lackeys of the world government, you guys, don't stop us from saving Ace. If anyone stops us, we will remove all obstacles. It's too weak, you pirate trash, with your strength, still want to save people. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Quote. 19th battle between the Navy and the pirates is still ongoing. The battle that just started, there are already countless corpses lying on the ground. Dead, wounded, crippled. Whether it is a Navy or a pirate, every second, someone dies. This is war, cruel war, and someone will always die. The weak will die, and the strong will naturally survive. Boom. The captain of the 3rd Division, Diamond Yoja, carried huge ice cubes with both hands and bombarded the Navy crowd, causing huge turmoil and cracking the ice cubes on the ground. Ah, my legs, help me. Escape, this monster is not something we can fight against. Only Mr. Lieutenant General can fight against him. Damn it, I'm being held down by this ice cube, any one of you can help me. Quote. The huge ice cube smashed down and instantly crushed part of the Navy into meat sauce. In addition, there was a group of people who were pressed against a certain part of the body by the ice cubes, and then couldn't break free. The entire battlefield is covered with stumps. Your opponent is me. The flying squirrel held the handle of the knife in both hands and stared at Joe's in front of him, his face gloomy, and said. He couldn't help seeing Joe's kill the Marines like that. Lieutenant General. Jaws' face was calm, but it also became dignified and serious. Lieutenant General level people are not something he can easily defeat, so they must be prepared. At the same time, many captains of the Whitebeard pirates have officially met with the Lieutenant General of the Navy headquarters and launched a rapid offensive, which has come and gone. There are control positions around, giving them a battlefield. Boom, boom, boom. The collision of knives and knives, all kinds of devil fruits are displayed in this battle. The bullet pierced the air and plunged into a Navy's body. A pirate laughed wildly, looked at the smoking pistol in his hand, and felt extremely excited. Behind him, however, a knife pierced his heart, killing him instantly. Scenes like this are playing out in every corner. After killing people, they are killed by others. In this way, it has been repeated, over and over again. Plop, the corpses fell on the ice cubes one by one, and the blood slid along the track, sliding in the transparent ice cubes, and flowing according to the special track. Chapter 377-Cruel War, NGT, page 1/2. Please click the next page to continue reading. Plop, the corpses fell on the ice cubes one by one, and the blood slid along the track, sliding in the transparent ice cubes, and flowing according to the special track. The bright red and demonic blood has become the focus of countless people's eyes. The smell of blood permeates the air, and the entire air of Marin Fando is filled with a strong smell of blood, which makes people unable to extricate themselves and is extremely pungent. Kill. Everyone was red-eyed, and when they saw the Navy or the pirates, they started to slaughter frantically. Puff, puff, puff. Wherever the knife passed, blood was thrown on the ice. Occasionally, there will be perforations where the foot is stepping on, and once it sinks into the bottom of the sea, it will no longer be able to save it. On the high platform, the three generals looked at the battlefield ahead. Kazuna gradually stood up, stretched his hands, looked at the battlefield ahead, his eyes narrowed slightly, and said lightly, "It's my turn to warm up." After he finished speaking, he turned into a ball of golden light and disappeared on the high platform. At the same time, the countless navies below boiled. "It's General Huang Yuan. General Huang Yuan has shot. Kill all these damn pirates. With General Kasaragi here, we don't need to worry at all, these damn pirates are finally about to die. Go." A group of Navy morale was like a rainbow, their faces were full of excitement, and they shouted. Their movements were more swift, as always, without any timidity. Under the confidence brought by the general, they only had the desire to win in their hearts, but did not think that they would lose. Morale is soaring. The pirates were briefly suppressed, which made the Navy excited. Bachi Changu Yu. The corners of the yellow monkey's mouth moved slightly, and the whole person stood in the sky, and the whole body turned into golden light. In the position beside him, there appeared a group of golden dots, existing around him, and each golden dot had a very violent power. Suddenly, Kizaru opened his eyes, and beside him, a figure appeared, staring at him with a smile. The Phoenix Marco. The yellow monkey's eyelids jumped, and the 8-foot Changuyu on his body slammed into Marco's position for 387 attacks. In an instant, Marco's whole body turned into a bird's existence, flickering with smoldering flames. The golden dots all submerged into his body, but did not cause any injuries. Kazuna. Marco's face was calm, and the figure disappeared with a whoosh. In the next second, he appeared beside Kizaru and kicked him violently. Boom! Kizaru used his arms to resist, and his domineering armed color changed his face slightly, and the whole person was quickly smashed on the ice from the air. Click! The ice cubes cracked. The figure of Kizaru stood here, looking at Marco in the sky. His face gradually became serious and serious, without any expression fluctuations. He can feel the terrifying strength of the other party, and similarly, he does not have any fear. The appearance of Marco indirectly forced Kyabu back, and the pirates were immediately high morale. Captain of the first team, Captain Marco. Brothers, Captain Marco also shot, let's kill it. It was the turn of the pirates to boost their morale, briefly suppressing the Navy. Puff! Each pirate held a machete, beheading the Navy in front of him frantically. The hand lifted the knife, the head rolled on the ground, and countless headless corpses appeared. The scene is extremely terrifying, like sheer hell, a mess. A pile of corpses piled up into mountains, this is war. Chapter 378 _ Blood-Drinking Demon Knife. Kill. In the center of the battlefield, countless naval pirates are fighting fiercely. The slaughter continued, and the sound of mourning drifted out. Navy here. Lieutenant General Crane, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, Lieutenant General Ghost Spider and others all dispatched to kill the pirates. Same. The captains of the Whitebeard pirates also killed the Navy to pieces. The blood was flowing, the corpses on the ground, and the seriously wounded were countless, lying on the ice, looking at the surrounding slaughter with a terrified expression. When they stopped, they realized that so many people had already died. A sense of fear spread in the hearts of these seriously injured and dying people. Whether it's a pirate or a navy, it's hard to hide the fear. On the high platform, the faces of the 5 Chihuahai were calm and unmoved. At this time, Hawkeye moved and took the initiative to move forward. Oh! Doflamingo's eyes flashed, feeling a little surprised. Unexpectedly, the first person to do it was actually Hawkeye with the coldest personality among the 5. I just wanted to see how far away I was from that man. Hawkeye's face was calm, he took out the black knight from the back, and walked to the front battlefield. A group of pirates rushed towards the face and fiercely attacked the position of Hawkeye. Puff! Under the knife, there is no life. Blood splattered on the ice cubes. Hawkeye's actions also caught the attention of some captains of the Whitebeard pirates. It's Hawkeye, this guy actually did it. A pirate gritted his teeth and shouted. The rest of the pirates also stared at Hawkeye, full of anger, but did not dare to act rashly. On the contrary, morale on the Navy side suddenly soared. Chihuahai's action made them even more excited. Chihuahai has started, let's kill it. With Chihuahai and 3 generals here, we don't have to worry about other things at all. Brothers, kill these pirates. ... Many navies boiled and shouted loudly. Even the warring states on the high platform could not help but glance at the position of Hawkeye, and his expression showed a bit of surprise. Hawkeye will take the initiative to take action, which is very unexpected. At this moment, Hawkeye held Heidaoyi in both hands, looking at the white beard on the Moby Dick in front of him, expressionless, took a deep breath, and slowly raised Heidaoyi. Suddenly, he slashed with a knife. Call out. A sharp slash was forced out from the tip of the blade. The terrifying slash pierced through the ice cubes, showing a dazzling light on the ground, hitting the Moby Dick's position extremely fast. On the deck, Whitebeard was expressionless, looking at the sharp slash that was about to attack Hawkeye, unmoved. He didn't have the ability to use the devil fruit, and he didn't have the slightest bit of resistance. This slash is getting closer. Boom. Suddenly, a diamond man covered in crystal blocks appeared in front of the Moby Dick. Captain of the 3rd Division, Diamond Yoja. If you want to do something to Dad, you have to pass me first, Tilda. Diamond Yoja turned into diamonds, blocking Hawkeye's slash fiercely, shouting. He burst out with all his strength, directly pushing Hawkeye's slash to the side. Boom. The fierce slash jumped over the Moby Dick, bombarded the position next to it, slashed the ice cubes, and slowly appeared the seawater tumbling. Chapter 378 _ The Blood-Drinking Demon Knife. The fierce slash jumped over the Moby Dick, bombarded the position next to it, slashed the ice cubes, and slowly appeared the seawater tumbling. Well. Hawkeye raised his brows, his face calm. However, Diamond Yoja took the initiative to move forward and fought Hawkeye. The ability of the diamond fruit gave his body the hardness of a diamond. Boom, boom, boom. Hawkeye waved a series of sharp slashes, hitting Diamond Yoja, but what it brought was just a flash of fire. And Diamond Yoja himself, unscathed. Is it that hard? Hawkeye's eyes became sharp, and he became a little serious. He used terrifying swordsmanship to directly suppress Diamond Yoja. However, he also didn't kill him, he just simply discussed with Diamond Joes. If he kills, Diamond Yoja will never stop him for a minute. After all, in the field of swordsmanship, he is a man who can compete with the red-haired Shanks. For Hawkeye's active attack, the rest of the Chihuahai couldn't hold their face, and they were dispatched one after another. Puff. Doflamingo manipulated the lines and slaughtered wildly at the pirates. With a casual look, it can be seen that his world is also very boring. To deal with these weak, basically do not have much effort. Moonlight Moria controls the Shadow Bat to harass the pirates on the battlefield. The female Emperor Hancock was relatively quiet. She did not take the initiative, but only occasionally killed the Navy pirates who came close. That's right. Whether it was a Navy or a pirate, she would kill anyone who came close. Empress Hancock, you even do it yourself. A lieutenant general pointed at Hancock and shouted loudly. Because Igia is so beautiful, they will definitely forgive Igia. Hancock smiled and shook his silky black hair. In an instant, the lieutenant general of the headquarters froze, unable to move. Warring States frowned and involuntarily looked at Li Ang's position. He knew that the relationship between Hancock and Li Ang was not easy. If the enemy adds another Li Ang, the naval headquarters will not be able to bear it. Therefore, he could only open one eye and close one eye, and whispered to the staff not to approach the area around Hancock, so as not to harm Chiu. However, when Warring States looked at Li Ang's position, the ominous premonition in his heart became stronger. I see. I don't know when. Li Ang is no longer sitting on the branch, but standing on the edge of the battlefield. Although his position is not close to the Navy or the pirates, Sengoku always feels that the other party is doing something obscure. What is he doing? What will he do at this time? The Warring States period was lost in thought, constantly thinking about what Li Ang's actions meant. At this time, Li Ang calmly walked to the edge of the ice cube. In the front position, a large pile of corpses piled up into a mountain. The smell of blood filled the air and was pungent. He pulled out the first-generation Goosh, Li Lao's, from the scabbard, his face calm. This small act really shocked the people present. Sengoku, Akainu, Aokiji, Kizaru and other high-ranking naval personnel, their pupils shrank, watching Li Yang's actions, inexplicably not paying attention to the battlefield. Compared with the changes in the battlefield, they are more concerned about Li Yang's actions. What is it for? Are you going to do it? If you do it, it will really be a big trouble. It's not just people in the Navy. In addition, both Whitebeard and Marco were aware of Li Yang's actions. Did he draw the knife to do it? Whitebeard frowned and muttered to himself, slightly dignified. Marco looked serious and didn't dare to be careless. Throughout the battlefield, the high-level personnel on both sides had their eyes fixed on Li Yang. However, Li Yang turned a blind eye to this and ignored the gazes of others. Instead, he looked at the first-generation Gigo in his hand and asked lightly, "You are sure that after drinking blood, you will be able to explode with more powerful power?" Chapter 379-Blood. Yes, I feel the smell of blood. Here, there is a lot of blood, the blood of many people. If there is enough blood, I can completely transform into a higher-level weapon. In the first generation of ghosts, the voice of the devil sounded. The devil, named Blood, by Li Yang. You know what would happen if I found out you cheated on me. Li Yang held the first-generation Goosh in both hands, his face was calm, and he said lightly. If it is deception, then the first generation of Onito does not need to exist. He can destroy this knife directly. Suddenly, the voice of Blood came out. How dare I deceive you? My words are absolutely true. Many years ago, my condition plummeted. If I don't suck enough blood, my strength will also decline as a whole. Now, if I have enough blood, I can completely return to my peak state. At that time, I was much stronger than I am now. I hope so. Li Yang's mouth moved slightly, looking at the countless corpses on the battlefield ahead, and asked, "What do I need to do so that 19 can let you suck the blood here?" You just need to insert me into the ground, and I can use my own method to draw the blood around and absorb it. At that time, someone may block it, so I can only look at you. I see. Li Yang nodded, holding the hilt of the first-generation Goosh in both hands. The long blade is extremely sharp, and it shines even more in the sun. Li Yang's movements were displayed in everyone's eyes, and everyone was puzzled. Warring States frowned and whispered to himself, what on earth is he doing? Unable to understand Li Yang's actions, he felt an ominous premonition in his heart. For some reason, he always felt that Li Yang's actions were not as simple as they seemed on the surface, and the purpose must be quite intriguing. However, Li Yang did not participate in the war, and he had nothing to say. In addition to the Warring States period, the three generals also looked at Li Yang's movements, and their faces became particularly solemn. At this time, Li Yang's power can definitely lead the changes in this war. Whichever side he joins will win a landslide victory. It is because of this that their mood is even more depressed. I just hope that there will not be such a bad result as they imagined. That kid. Whitebeard's eyelids twitched, staring at Li Yang in front of him, his face became serious. He also had a strange feeling in his heart, as if Li Yang's actions seemed to trigger some very terrifying things, so he had to focus on the other party. At this moment, whether it's the pirates or the Navy, the captains, lieutenant generals, all of them watched Li Yang's movements from the corner of their eyes. It can be said that one person caught the attention of everyone present. Of course, the image worms did not observe this location, and some ordinary naval soldiers and pirates did not care about Li Yang's existence. They only know that they are fighting and fighting with the enemy. Because they still can't understand the power that Li Yang has over this war. What is he going to do? Lieutenant General He and the others stopped their movements, frowned, and looked at Li Yang's position. In everyone's sight, Li Yang held the handle of the first-generation Goosh in both hands, and directly pierced the sharp point of the knife into the ice on the ground. Click. The subtle voice came out crisply, and only echoed in Li Yang's ears. The rest of the people couldn't hear the voice at all. Is that so? Chapter 379-Blood. Is that so? Li Ang's mouth moved slightly and asked in a low voice. Yes, my lord, that's all. The blood's voice became obviously excited, and hurriedly said. It's excited. At this point, Li Ang clearly felt that the consciousness of blood in the demon knife was in a state of excitement. Obviously, it had been waiting for this day for a long, long time. Hundreds of years, thousands of years. These Li Ang are unknown, but what he is looking forward to is what a huge change will be brought about by the changes of the first generation of ghosts after drinking blood. I hope you didn't deceive me. If I find out, your fate will not be unexpected. I will destroy you with my own hands, do you understand? Li Ang continued to speak with no expression on his face. Don't dare. The emotion of blood stopped, and even the voice had a trace of unconscious fear. That's the best. Li Ang let go of his hands and let the first-generation goosh sink into the ice, unmoved. Since the first-generation Guido himself has a way, then he certainly doesn't have to worry about it. Step by step, he walked to the position next to him, his eyes watching the slightest changes in the first generation of ghosts in front of him. I have to say that when the first-generation goosh was inserted into the ice cube, he clearly noticed that there was a slight movement in the entire battlefield, the flow of blood, and the direction of the spread of the bloody smell. Come on. Li Ang's eyes flashed, and he was a little surprised. It's hard to believe that a mere knife can bring about such a strange thing. In his sight. I see. Beside the first generation of ghosts, the few remaining pirates' corpses were flowing with blood, and they looked very dazzling and prominent on the ice. At the same time, the trajectory of the blood flow changed, and it moved slightly to the side of the first generation of ghosts. Blood poured into it, and was directly sucked by the first generation ghost. At the same time, what brought about changes was that the original smooth and sharp blade of the first generation goosh flashed a strange bright red, and it disappeared in a flash, and then gradually became introverted. Li Ang confessed that he would never read it wrong. There was indeed a flash of red light just now in the early 837 generation goosh. Is it a change? It's just that the amount of blood is far from enough. Therefore, this red light just flashed away and never appeared again. The countless corpses on the battlefield, the trajectory of the blood flow has also changed. Even under the seabed, the blood that was originally fused with the seawater was gradually separated, and swarmed to the location of the first generation Onitaru. In an instant. Under the original ghost, the originally crystal clear water gradually emerged a bright red color. Center of the battlefield. Ah! A group of pirates and the navy are killing each other. With a thump, a navy fell to the ground, with countless scars all over his body. Originally integrated into seawater, blood and water will naturally merge with each other. However, after the appearance of the first generation of ghosts, these blood did not merge with the seawater, but instead appeared as independent individuals, and drifted away in the direction of the first generation of ghosts. Not just such a place, but the entire battlefield with a radius of hundreds of meters shows such a picture. For a time, the white ice cubes around the first generation goosh also appeared bright red, turning this tragic battlefield into a bit of a monster. Chapter 380-Taboo. Originally white ice cubes, and the seawater with no impurities, even if the ice cubes can penetrate, they will not see any color. But with the movement of the first generation Guido, the blood in a radius of 100 meters was directly drawn, and the white and transparent ice cubes were immediately dyed red. This scene made many people fall into silence when they saw it. As expected of a demon sword. Li Ang's eyes twinkled, and he appreciated it. Being able to induce the blood flow in the area of hundreds of meters is already quite a remarkable move. At least, for a weapon, it is the only one in the world that can have such an ability. Not only does he possess his own consciousness, but he also possesses the ability to draw blood by himself. The first generation Guido really surprised Li Ang. Perhaps, after sucking enough blood, this knife will really transform to a level that he can't even imagine. Evolve, but if you think that you can get rid of my control if you evolve, that's naive. I hope you're not so stupid. Li Ang's face was calm, and he thought so in his heart. He stood quietly in the area outside the battlefield, watching the changes of the first generation of ghosts, preventing the rest of the people from approaching. However, he would not think that the first generation of Onoduru would have no way to deal with ordinary people. With the terrifying murderous aura it possesses, most people who come close to it are afraid that they will be severely affected by him, resulting in a mental breakdown. Even if you can really touch it, you will not be able to withstand the erosion of its consciousness and will be completely controlled by it. In this way, Li Ang doesn't need to do anything, he just needs to quietly watch the changes of the first generation of ghosts. Other ordinary people, once approached, the first generation of ghosts will be solved by himself, there is no doubt. At this time, not only Li Ang is watching the changes of the first generation of ghosts, but even the high-level personnel of the Navy such as Sengoku, Akainu, Aokiji, Kayabashi, etc. are also observing the taboo areas around the first-generation ghosts. What's the matter? Warring States frowned, and he always felt uneasy in his heart. Seeing that the blood was obviously drawn to the side of the knife, his whole heart clenched. It seems that this knife can devour people's blood. Thinking of this, his expression became more solemn. Although the blood he absorbed was from dead people, many of these dead people were still Marine soldiers. In this way, watching his colleagues' blood being sucked, his mood naturally couldn't get better. This demon sword. Akainu's face became gloomy and said. A knife that sucks blood is not a demon knife, what is that? Even if he was far away from him, this knife could feel an evil aura, and it was definitely not an ordinary blade. At least, even the Supreme Sword has never had this kind of power. Not many people know about Li Ang taking away the first generation of the 5 old stars, Goosh. Even the Warring States period is only half understood. Only 5 of the 5 old stars are the clearest. The rest of the people never knew that Li Ang took the first generation Goosh from the hands of the 5 old stars. In the eyes of the 5 old stars, there is absolutely no need to clarify this matter to others. Therefore, there are fewer people who can know about this matter. But this does not include the 3 generals. Hey, the demon knife that sucks human blood, can you really let it exist? Aokiji's face also became solemn, said. However, it also depends on its holder. Huang Yuan's eyelids twitched, and his eyes were a little frightened. The biggest shadow in his heart was the scene of being hit hard by Li Ang. Under the siege, with his strength, he was hit hard, let alone one-on-one. If it must be one-on-one, then he will definitely be killed, which he will never doubt. Chapter 380-Taboo. NLT, 29 and GT. If it must be one-on-one, then he will definitely be killed, which he will never doubt. Therefore, the owner of this demon sword is Li Ang. In that case, if they want to stop Yao Dao's actions, they have to think about whether they have the ability to shake Li Ang. If they don't have the ability, they can only grit their teeth and endure it. After all, Li Ang didn't do anything to them. It's been a good result. If it goes on like this, it's hard to imagine what kind of terrifying weapon will be born. Moreover, I heard that the demon sword can control people's mental will, control people's bodies, and become a killing machine. Akainu's eyes flickered, and his tone became heavier. If this monster is controlled, it is unimaginable that in this world, who else can stop his terrifying strength? At that time, all life will be ruined. Aokiji also had a heavy heart and said slowly. Only Kizaru, with huge pressure in his eyes, shook his head and said in that very firm tone, I don't think this monster will be controlled. Really? Akainu and Aokiji also nodded silently. Want to control Li Ang? This is really too difficult. The other side. On the deck of the Moby Dick. Whitebeard stared at Li Ang in front of him with sharp eyes, took a deep breath, and calmed down a little, but the pressure in his heart was still enormous. Seeing that the blood of the sons was actually swallowed by a knife, this made him feel very angry. Dad, don't be impulsive. Marco stood beside Whitebeard with a low face and said. He could see that Whitebeard wanted to stop the demon knife. However, at present, it is the most irrational thing to meet the owner of that demon sword. That was a terrifying being who was so tyrannical that even the Navy headquarters bowed its head. Marco was very worried that his father was likely to die at the hands of the other party. Even though he is very confident in his father, there is nothing he can do. Liang's record is really amazing. From the moment he appeared in people's ears, he has made countless terrifying feats. Any one thing is enough to alarm the entire sea. In the Battle of Fame, the battle that attracted the attention of the world, he alone suppressed the G3 branch of the naval branch, and, in the presence of many terrifying combat powers, severely damaged Kizaru. Then used the domineering arrogance to suppress thousands of people in the audience. That picture has made Marco feel terrified to this day. If you can, you still have to try to avoid collision with the opponent, especially in today's battlefield. Once you provoke this monster, it will be difficult to get away again. Quote. They'll do it. Mar of Nuos looked at the group of pirates on his side and said in a low voice. He believed that not only them, but also the pirates and navy in the battlefield must have noticed the changes there. As expected. Under Marco's words, Whitebeard saw that the battlefield seemed to have shifted. It's because of that knife. Whitebeard's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice. He could see that the fact that the knife sucked blood had caused fear in the hearts of the people present, so they gradually moved the battlefield in the opposite direction of the demon knife. In this way, even if it is bad, it will not be sucked blood. No one dared to approach the area within 100 meters around the demon sword. No one dared to stop the demon sword from sucking blood. Because not far away, a young man was sitting, watching the changes of the demon sword in front of him. The owner of the demon sword was too big, so that the numerous lieutenant generals present hurriedly issued orders to completely keep the battlefield away from that taboo area.